Enter Bigong, their new instructor. But this cocky rookie, he is clearly not a fan. Time for a brutal reality check. One earth-shattering stomp later, the punk's eyeballs nearly launch into orbit. The kid swings back. Cute. Bigong effortlessly ghosts behind his blind spot before he can even blink. Wham! A merciless gut punch instantly leaves the kid violently gasping for oxygen. But our main character is not just some crazy bully. To grasp this madness, we must rewind the clock. 249 years ago, a massive spatial rift shattered the skies. Hellish demons poured through instantly declaring war. These terrifying monsters slaughtered innocent lives like livestock. The great demonic invasion had officially begun. Facing absolute doom, the Orthodox Alliance mobilized their ultimate trump card, the Heaven Demon Extermination Corps. Swearing to eradicate this evil, these elite warriors clashed with the demonic vanguard in Anhui just 3 days later. Spoiler alert, it was a total massacre. The overwhelmingly powerful demons crushed them like mere bugs. Fast forward exactly 1 year. Half the Central Plains population completely erased from existence. Desperate times forced the Orthodox and unorthodox factions to forge humanity's final defensive wall in Sichuan. Blood painted the earth for 15 grueling days. Tragically, 90% of our allied forces met a gruesome end. Essentially, the entire martial arts realm of the Central Plains was burnt to absolute ashes. The pitiful survivors, chained like dogs, and dragged into the abyssal demon realm. Among these miserable captives was Bigong. 5 agonizing years later, a bizarre twist of fate occurred. Bigong was actually born without an ounce of inner energy. Yet while enduring their hellish, mind-breaking experiments, his monstrous captors actually classified him as an extreme anomaly. Warped by relentless torture and dark brainwashing, Bigong was weaponized directly into the demonic vanguard. Decades blurred into bloody chaos. As a demonic soldier, he mercilessly invaded countless dimensions, slaughtering anything that dared breathe. Drowning worlds in despair for 75 years, his horrifying kill count finally crowned him a ruthless demonic commander. 120 years ruling in darkness, the devastating truth of his home realm's destruction finally reached him. Blazing wrath awakened his dormant humanity. For 50 grueling years, he hunted for one specific legendary forbidden art. 65 years of meticulous scheming later, Bigong unleashed a spectacular blood-soaked rebellion against his twisted masters. Yet within a mere 7 days, his glorious uprising was crushed. His entire army reduced to ash, battered, bleeding, and utterly broken. Bigong knelt before the terrifying Demon King himself, Lord Tarrant. The monstrous sovereign sneered at his pathetic state, throwing away centuries of bloody glory for this laughable mutiny. Pure disappointment. Tarrant coldly uttered his cursed demonic title, Schwitz. Coughing up blood, Bigong furiously rejected that foul name. Amused, the colossal tyrant confessed he just could not comprehend him. Having observed mankind for ages, Tarrant knew they were undeniably fragile and pathetic creatures. Yet he admired one terrifying human trait: their absolute psychotic obsession with surviving against impossible, nightmarish odds. It was humanity's sole redeeming quality. So why, Tarrant questioned, did his greatest hound suddenly embrace such suicidal recklessness? Grinning through the pain, Bigong revealed his true goal. He just wanted a taste of the king's overwhelming power. He needed to measure this absolute despair, guaranteeing total victory for their inevitable epic rematch. Caught off guard, the Demon King chuckled at this insane audacity, though he still pitied the dying fool. Without an ounce of mercy, Tarrant made it explicitly clear that execution was imminent. He mocked the inescapable trap. But in a defiant twist, Bigong smirked, absolutely certain the Grim Reaper was not arriving today. Burning his very soul, Bigong unleashed the ultimate taboo art he had sacrificed everything for. Boom! A mysterious violet rift ripped through the heavens, enveloping Bigong. Its terrifying aura sent shockwaves through Tarrant's mind. It was the ultimate cheat code, Temporal Regression. A divine miracle stolen directly from the ancient evil deity, Nice Run. The terrifying truth struck Tarrant. This maniac swallowed 2 centuries of agonizing humiliation just to secure this reality-bending escape. As the blinding light swallowed him, Bigong flashed a villainous grin, promising absolute hell for their next bloody reunion. He swore upon his soul to viciously annihilate Tarrant and wipe every single demonic trace from the damn universe. Hearing this absurd threat, the towering infernal overlord threw his head back in roaring maniacal laughter. With blazing eyes, Tarrant joyfully welcomed the challenge deeply, craving their eventual apocalyptic showdown. Acknowledging Bigong as the only worthy human ever, the monstrous king eagerly anticipates what insane power this regressor will bring next. The time regression portal flares to life. Bigong is hurled back through time. Crash! He faceplants into a Murim pavilion. This legendary technique just hurled him 10 years backward, right before the demonic invasion. Of all places, he demolished the roof of the Dragon Spring Academy, a prestigious Orthodox Alliance faction. A few days later, the clueless Academy disciples totally bought the rumor that a freak lightning strike destroyed their roof. While fixing the massive hole, two grunts gossiped completely, doubting the whole magical lightning story. Plus, the supposed lightning only smited the absolute biggest loser on campus. Yep, that is our main character. Bigong, the academy's pathetic vice instructor. Dr. Jinbek took him in as an orphan back in the day. Everyone calls him the ultimate trash, who cannot spark a single drop of inner energy. He allegedly tanked the lightning bolt. Sadly, the haters are super bummed out that he barely got a scratch. Plot twist. Today is basically his public execution. By execution, I mean a totally rigged martial arts duel. The prize, the coveted Spear Assistant Instructor title at the prestigious Dragon Spring Academy. A massive crowd gathered for the bloodbath, and Bigong is seen as the absolute underdog. He currently holds the title, but a highly recommended hotshot just challenged him for his job. Enter Mang, the so-called invincible divine spear. Upper management wanted to test Bigong's trash skills, making this death match the perfect excuse. Both warriors must clash, staking their absolute honor and their entire Murim careers on this single fight. Stepping into the arena, Mang immediately starts trashing him, saying he looks shockingly decent for a dead man. Mang fully expected a no-show, especially after hearing the hilarious rumors about him getting deep-fried by a thunderstorm. Still, Mang smirks at his guts and promises to bury him in 5 seconds flat. Feeling cocky, Mang generously offers the trash a quick chance to surrender and crawl away. Suddenly, Bigong starts yapping about a story. He talks about a distant future where a pathetic instructor lacked inner energy. Born cursed with blocked meridians, it was not his fault, yet the whole world treated him like absolute garbage. Ultimately, this worthless teacher, dubbed the absolute shame of the academy, got brutally humiliated in a public arena. Stripped of his noble rank, he was tossed into the gutters to scrub floors forever. Bigong sighs, saying the dude suffered absolute hell. Mang just blinks, super confused. He screams, "What kind of nonsense are you babbling about?" Clueless Mang does not realize Bigong is literally spoiling his own tragic past where Mang originally ruined his life. But the timeline just got patched. Bigong glares coldly, declaring he has waited decades for this exact rematch. Mang absolutely loses his mind. He wanted to go easy on the loser, but now he is going to break every single bone in his body. Boom! Mang unleashes his legendary Bull Demon Spear. Art of violent crimson aura erupts, aiming straight at our guy. Form 1 ferocious bull charge. Mang explodes forward like an absolute freight train. Whoosh! Mang thrusts empty air. His jaw drops in sheer panic. The supposedly slow loser completely vanished, teleporting behind him like a final boss. Bigong brutally mocks him. "You actually need to hit me for that to work, buddy." Raging hard, Mang wildly swings his weapon backward, but Bigong simply dances away like it is nothing. Mang is completely mind-blown. How is this trash dodging his ultimate moves? He grinded for literally decades to perfect this. Bigong sways like a phantom. The rumors called him pathetic, but this guy is moving like an absolute god. Emotional damage. Bigong roasts him alive, calling his technique embarrassingly slow and totally useless for teaching. Mang is absolutely coping right now. He refuses reality, convinced the loser simply triggered a lucky dodge. Gritting his teeth, Mang resets his stance. He stomps with such insane force that the arena floor shatters into a crater. Eyes blazing with sheer fury, he rockets toward him. Ultimate skill activated Bull Demon Spear Art 4th form Falling Bull Strike, yet Bigong just yawns at the incoming nuke. Bigong twirls his weapon with insane swagger. Mang just laughs like a maniac, screaming that blocking this strike is mathematically impossible. But plot twist, Bigong completely drops his martial arts stance, raising a single bare hand instead. Boom! A literal magical fireball explodes from his palm. Mang stares in absolute horror, completely unable to dodge this unscientific attack. Kaboom! The inferno blasts Mang away, dumping him into the dirt like absolute garbage. Mang screams while burning to a crisp. The entire crowd just freezes, absolutely traumatized by this absurd cheating. Mang shrieks like a banshee. The referee instantly waves the match off, declaring Bigong the ultimate victor. Bigong strikes a ridiculously smug pose. Meanwhile, Mang wails in absolute agony, begging for a bucket of water. Bigong flashes back to his demonic kidnapping. Dragged to the brutal demon realm, he somehow survived for terrifying centuries. Through that pure hell, he stumbled upon one epic revelation. His ultra-tier heat-yang magic turns out it operates exactly like everyday Murim martial arts. Medics rush in to scrape crispy Mang off the stage. Bigong brutally hits him with some shameless trash talk. "Awesome fight, bro." The crowd sits utterly paralyzed. What monstrous power was that? Nobody has ever witnessed such insane skills. Whispers instantly spread about this legendary so-called Yang finger arts. The stubborn elders reluctantly accept his victory, fiercely questioning his sudden explosion of internal ki. Bigong drops a shameless grin. Total beginner's luck, elders. Time to cook up a legendary lie. He claims he ate a highly suspicious glowing weed during a random midnight stroll. Boom. Instant internal energy awakened. Before he can spin this ridiculous fairy tale, the furious elders abruptly interrupt. We smell your total bullcrap. Bigong just shrugs with zero shame. Believe my flawless logic or do not. Sounds like a you problem. Honestly, the tiny details do not even matter. I never cheated, he declares. The instructor exam rules never explicitly stated that they actually had to fight using only spears. By Murim loophole logic, his win is valid. Why interrogate a pure genius? He utterly dominated the match fair and square. End of story. One furious elder nearly pops a blood vessel. Thankfully, his terrified partner hastily holds him back from attacking. Defeated by pure audacity, the official groans and admits that Bigong officially won. Right as they hand over the vice instructor badge, Bigong boldly interrupts the ceremony. He has one insane demand. Test me for the full official instructor position. The entire hall gasps. His wild duel instantly sparks legendary rumors. Students gawk as he struts through Dragon Spring Academy. This elite facility was built by the mighty Orthodox Alliance to safeguard the Murim. Their ultimate goal, to forge young rookies into the absolute pillars of tomorrow's great Orthodox Alliance. They aggressively recruit teens aged 15 to 18, cherry-picking talents from the most decently sized, prestigious clans. Every teacher here is an absolute martial master, handpicked directly from the Orthodox Alliance. The hierarchy divides them into basic assistants and elite seniors. A massive army of assistants vastly outnumbers the seniors, perfectly designed to micromanage these chaotic students. Later that evening, Bigong nearly reaches his dorm when Dr. Jinbake frantically blocks his path. How the heck did you use Ki? The panicked doctor desperately demands to know what insane stunt Bigong pulled. Just lucky, Doc Bigong repeats with a grin. But Jinbake totally snaps, screaming that his excuse is complete garbage. Jinbake furiously reminds the boy about his agonizing years of medical treatments. Upon discovering Bigong's shattered Ki pathways, the doctor tried every miraculous cure possible, only to fail miserably every time. Sobbing hysterically, the old man drops to his knees. Haunted by how horribly society bullied the powerless Bigong, he calls himself a massive failure. As apologies spill out, a warm smile graces Bigong's face. This dramatic old-timer literally never changes. This weeping physician is basically Bigong's adoptive father. 542 agonizing years ago in his past life, Jinbake heroically dove into roaring flames to save Kid Bigong from bloodthirsty bandits. Tragically, Jinbake later sacrificed his own life, shielding innocent people during a catastrophic demonic invasion. But in this new timeline, Bigong swears on his soul that this precious old man will absolutely survive. Crouching beside the sobbing physician, Bigong gently tells him to drop the massive guilt trip, demanding he finally stop worrying so much. Hearing that bizarrely confident tone, Jinbake's snot-nosed despair instantly morphs into utter wide-eyed confusion. Just trust me now, old man, Bigong declares. I am personally going to obliterate every single problem we have. Later that night, Bigong sits completely alone, running a hardcore physical diagnostic check. Brutal reality hits. That legendary time spell totally vaporized 90% of his precious mana. He is painfully capped at the 4th circle of magic. A massive downgrade from his legendary 8th circle status that literally took agonizing centuries to reach. However, Bigong just smirks gratefully. Honestly, having even a tiny drop of mana left in his system is an absolute miracle. Flashbacks of demonic hell hit him again. But a smirk forms. He truly escaped that nightmare. He successfully hit the reset button, rewinding time before the demonic invasion even began. Still, the countdown is ticking. In exactly 10 years, those monsters will return to obliterate this realm. Luckily, his brain holds 300 years of cheat code memories. It is time to flip the script entirely. He knows their entire playbook, every dark spell, cursed artifact, and lethal weapon they will unleash. Best of all, he knows exactly how to butcher Demon King Tarrant. Suddenly, Jinbake rushes in. The slimy Vice Academy Master Cheon Samyang is demanding an immediate midnight audience, a late-night summon, and making his buddy play delivery boy. How absolutely suspicious and dramatic. Jinbake shrugs off the annoying errand, but his eyes scream pure panic for his friend. This shady midnight meeting is definitely about his outrageous promotion request. He warns him to brace for an impossible test. Samyang personally sponsored that brat Min anyway. Since Bigong utterly humiliated Min Samyang is definitely plotting bitter revenge, why even volunteer for the instructor gig? With a confident smirk, he calls it step 1 of fixing this garbage academy. He throws on his uniform and confidently struts toward the lion's den. Historically, Dragon Spring Academy was an absolute powerhouse, ranking top 3 among Orthodox martial academies. However, 2 years ago, their legendary leader, a top 10 martial master, vanished into thin air. Finding a replacement was impossible. 2 years of desperate searching yielded absolutely zero clues. Without their pillar of strength, the Academy's glorious reputation completely crashed. Stepping into the tense office, Samyong and his cronies glare. They demand if his request is a joke. Flashing a dazzling fake smile, Bigong confirms. Internally, he wants to punch Samyong, the main culprit behind this decline. Dark memories of the apocalyptic invasion flood his mind. Dimensional rifts tore the sky apart, grotesque unseen horrors poured out, slaughtering everyone in sight. Agonizing screams echoed alongside rivers of blood. That hellish day sparked the realm's absolute downfall. The bright-eyed young disciples were butchered without a single shred of mercy. Amidst the slaughter, he caught Samyong and Instructor Deong pathetically fleeing the scene. If that coward had just sounded the alarm or triggered the shields, countless innocent lives would have survived. Standing before him now, the dying shrieks of those kids still deeply haunt him. Though this timeline is safe for now, he will never forgive that treacherous, pathetic excuse for a leader. Since Bigong stubbornly demands a promotion, Samyong drops a seemingly impossible hurdle in his path. His grand test solo raid, the Demonic Knight Stronghold. Bigong blinks, almost laughing. Demonic Knights. They are literally just crusty mountain bandits hiding nearby. Samyong nods with a sinister glint, ordering their complete and utter extermination. On paper, they are a massive, terrifying bandit syndicate infesting the old sacred mountain. Thanks to endless civilian complaints, destroying this trash mob is now an official subjugation quest. Samyong hands over an officially stamped scroll, sealing the deadly and obvious trap. Skimming the ridiculous document, Bigong sarcastically asks why teaching requires playing exterminator. Samyong smugly claims it is the bare minimum requirement. As the Academy's vanguard, senior instructors must flex overwhelming martial dominance in the field. Instructor Deong glares from the corner, proudly repping the tyrannical Tiger Blade arts. These guys flaunt their martial master titles, from Samyong's Lightning Blade to Deong's Roaring Tiger Strikes. Do not forget Yunbok, the legendary sniper of the soul-chasing arrow, and Sangpil, lurking in the corner with his Dark Shadow Divine Sword. The Orthodox Alliance officially hyped these bozos up, just for beating up some random thugs. Ignoring their inflated egos, Bigong coolly asks for the exact deadline on this side quest. Deong nearly bursts a blood vessel at his audacity, but Samyong gleefully restrains his guard dog. Samyong glares, delivering the strict ultimatum. 2 weeks to finish this suicide mission, and even a second late means instant failure. Instead of trembling, our main character simply smirks. 2 weeks, please. He casually flexes, declaring he will wipe out the entire mission in just 3 days. This absolute madness leaves the instructors completely speechless, especially Dong. Once our hero leaves, Dong immediately questions if this insane promotion is actually real. Samyong just chuckles darkly, brushing off the panic. He practically guarantees that our cocky hero is marching straight to his grave. Puzzled, Dong desperately asks what the actual trap is. Meanwhile, our crazy protagonist is already happily sprinting straight toward the deadly mountains. Spamming the haste spell to zoom across the map, our hero is no idiot. He knows exactly what those scheming geezers plotted. His past life memories click into place. Right now, the notorious Forest Alliance was just starting its bloody rise. Right now, the martial world completely ignores them as mere bugs. They are currently nothing more than a tiny, insignificant blip. Back at the Academy, Samyong drops the massive lore reveal. The Alliance leader, he is an absolute monster at the peak martial realm, known as Master Akugum of the Demonic Knight Stronghold. Samyong smirks, noting that Guji is no cheap thug, a fact even Orthodox masters fear. Plot twist. This guy actually used to rule over a terrifying unorthodox faction famously known as the Heaven-Destroying Sect. After a brutal backstabbing, the entire martial world completely believed he was rotting in an unmarked grave years ago. But this cockroach survived. He crawled back from hell, hunted down every single traitor, and absolutely massacred them all. His vengeance was so unbelievably psychotic that even the unorthodox factions slapped a massive bounty on his head. Now, this hidden monster has finally resurfaced right here. Dong practically drops his jaw in pure horror, frantically stammering out how Samyong could possibly know such highly classified underground secrets. Samyong smoothly waves off the question, treating the detail like absolute trash. Sweating bullets, Dong remains terrified that our overpowered hero might actually survive, especially after that freakish power scaling he showed earlier. Samyong laughs it off. A controlled duel is completely different from a bloody real-world slaughter. He bets his life the kid will definitely become monster food. Cut to our hero casually hiking the death zone. He totally admits his current fourth circle magic is way too pathetic to beat a boss like Gugi right now. But of course, our crazy protagonist has a sneaky cheat code ready. Time for a quick power leveling session. With an 8th circle archmage brain, he just needs pure mana to cheat the system. Ping, he casts a ridiculously high-level radar spell, easily scanning the area for his ultimate jackpot. He casually strolls up to a super boring-looking cliff. Plot twist, it is actually a massive high-grade magical illusion wall. Jackpot. Our hero smirks like a greedy goblin. Who would have ever guessed such an unbelievably overpowered artifact was stashed right here in the Central Plains? He phases right through the magical hologram and casually enters the hidden dungeon, glowing brightly in the dark. A legendary special-grade mana crystal. This absolutely broken battery was secretly stashed away by literal demonic invaders. Knowing their future interdimensional war is inevitable, these sneaky demons pre-planted all their overpowered cheat items right here in the human realm for later. This shiny rock is basically their ultimate power source, designed to instantly recharge a demon's entire magic bar. Normal humans would instantly explode touching this. Good thing our main character is absolutely built different from regular mortals. He grabs the shiny loot and gulps down its energy. Boom. A massive pillar of terrifying mana completely blows the dungeon roof off. That dark night, Googie and his clueless bandit squad aggressively scour the mountain. After hours of sweating, an exhausted minion nervously reports that this stupid rock is completely empty. Googie snaps at the minion to shut up and dig deeper. With his monstrous martial instincts, this veteran boss had definitely sensed that massive nuclear mana blast our hero triggered earlier. Surprise. Our troll protagonist is casually chilling on a rock right behind them. He sarcastically claps, praising the boss's surprisingly good radar skills. Utterly creeped out by this ninja behavior, Googie glares and demands the cheeky kid's identity. Time for the ultimate flex, spinning a flashy magic circle to look incredibly cool. Bake smugly introduces himself as an elite Dragon Spring Academy instructor. The bandit mobs instantly burst into mocking laughter. But, before things escalate, their terrified boss screams at them to shut up. Sweating buckets, Googie asks if this kid caused that insane nuclear shockwave. Our hero just gives the most infuriating, sarcastic smirk ever. Completely triggered, the boss violently swings his heavy blade, but our protagonist dodges the strike like an absolute ghost. The strike triggers a massive crimson explosion. Thinking he actually one-shot the kid, the boss laughs proudly, but a chilling whisper from behind completely shatters his ego. Boom. Our hero unleashes a terrifying tidal wave of pure, concentrated mana. The boss barely block dodges the strike, but his poor mob characters instantly lose their heads in a beautiful shower of total destruction. Now standing completely alone, the boss drops his jaw in sheer terror as he watches this smiling demon effortlessly wipe his entire squad. Eyes deadpan, Bigong drops the bomb. He is also climbing this mountain to hunt him down. Match made in heaven. They violently clash. Bigong mocks him to avenge his fallen minions. That absolutely triggers Gaiam, who furiously screams for his identity. The battle goes 0 to 100. Bigong's fierce purple aura violently smashes against Gaiam's blazing red energy. Sparks fly and explosions rock the mountain. Mid-swing, Bigong casually drops that he is actually an academy instructor. Gaiam yells in denial, sweating bullets as he tries to land a single strike. But our main character is absurdly fast. Then it hits him. Bigong treats this like a light warm-up. Gaiam's ego takes massive damage. Gaiam completely snaps. He detonates his ultimate power, unleashing a blood-red shockwave that finally forces Bigong to slide back. Behold, his edgy trump card, the Insane Heaven, destroying Hegemon Divine Arts. Burning his core, he cranks his power to the absolute max as his eyes glow a demonic red. You messed up big time, Gaiam gloats about his ultimate skill. Then the classic villain monologue actually begins. Cue the tragic flashback. Thrown off a cliff by traitors, he fueled his revenge by absorbing insane core energy. But Bigong hits the mute button on him. Skip the sob story, he yawns. Nobody absolutely cares. Critical emotional damage. Gaiam is left completely speechless, as Bigong totally destroys typical villain tropes without breaking a sweat. Suddenly, Gaiam freezes. A creeping trail of ice locks him completely in place. Enter Bigong's savage technique, the freezing wave. While the villain is still buffering, Bigong casually strolls up and hits him with a brutal astral chain. Void portals rip open. Glowing magical chains violently erupt instantly, binding Gaiam's arms and locking down his movements. Gaiam furiously screams, struggling like a caught fish. Bigong just sighs, telling him to stop wasting his precious breath. The cold, hard truth. The exact second those chains locked onto him, it was already game over. These are not normal chains. They rapidly drain the victim's internal energy. The ultimate anti-martial artist cheat code. Completely trapped and out of options, a panicking Gaiam desperately demands to know where Bigong learned such dark sorcery. Are you from the demonic cult? He screams. Bigong just smirks. It is not sorcery, you scrub. It is magic. He ruthlessly roasts the villain, calling him an uncultured bandit for confusing high-tier magic with cheap parlor tricks. Crushing despair finally kicks in. Gaiam realizes he is actually going to meet his pathetic end on this freezing mountain. When asked for his final words, Gaiam cries that his only real regret is failing to get his glorious revenge. He just wanted to butcher the scum who manipulated his loyal followers back in the heaven-destroying sect. That is exactly why he teamed up with Simyong. He was only hiding out here to recharge his lost demonic powers. Bigong's reaction to this heartbreaking lore. A slow, sarcastic clap, 0 sympathy points awarded today. Laughing out loud, Bigong admits the guy's determination is top tier. His whole revenge plan was actually pretty solid. Triggered by the mockery, Gayam lashes out. "You comfortable, privileged brat," he yells, claiming Bigong knows absolutely nothing about true suffering. Oh, terrible move. Bigong's cheerful face instantly darkens. Did this guy just assume he lived a comfortable life? Eyes glowing with terrifying madness, Bigong steps closer. Guillaume's instincts scream that he just poked a sleeping dragon. Sweating profusely, the villain's face drains of color. This aura Bigong is definitely not just some ordinary dude. He realizes this guy is totally unhinged, so Bigong decides to kindly share a free trial of his 200 years of pure torment. Giving the most villainous smile ever, Bigong slaps his hand onto Guillaume's head. Time for a traumatic memory download. Boom! Guillaume's consciousness is forcefully yanked straight into the nightmarish demon realm to witness Bigong's daily hell. Dropping into a desolate wasteland, Guillaume spins around in panic. What kind of cursed illusion did this psycho cast? Before he can even process it, a colossal nightmare fuel monster materializes right above his head. Paralyzed by raw terror, the scene instantly glitches. Now he is standing in a brutal battlefield of endless human slaughter. But wait, it gets worse. Next stop is a horrifying torture room where demons performed sickening experiments on humans. Guillaume's sanity points hit absolute 0. His mind completely shatters the second he is dragged before the almighty Demon King. Snapping back to reality, Guillaume is utterly broken. He shrieks in mind-numbing horror, completely traumatized by a few seconds of hell. Bigong casually towers over the weeping mess. Enjoy the preview. That is exactly what awaits humanity in 10 years. Guillaume violently grabs Bigong's clothes. He desperately begs for death, just to escape the agonizing mental nightmare. The once feared villain is now bawling like a little baby. Feeling slightly generous, Bigong agrees to finally end his misery. Without any hesitation, Bigong swings his blade and cleanly lops off his head. Bigong strolls back into the academy, casually dropping Gugi's severed head and sword right on Simyong's desk. The elder's jaw practically hits the floor. With a cheeky smirk, Bigong mentions he brought the head as a bonus souvenir. Just in case the sword alone was not enough proof for the stubborn old man. Skipping the pleasantries, Bigong slams his hands down. He demands they skip the chatter and instantly promote him to senior instructor status. By the very next morning, a panicked Simyong summons an emergency staff meeting. Yo Woo Jin, their resident fist technique master, furiously denies it. There is absolutely no way Bigong defeated that notorious bandit boss. He screams that just 3 days ago, Bigong was literally the biggest laughingstock in the entire martial academy. Onuk fiercely interrogates Dong. Did that notorious trash really solo the demonic stronghold? Dong nods grimly, confessing he personally investigated the incredibly bloody mountain scene. He confirms that every single dead bandit was scattered exactly where Bigong casually claimed they would be found. Dong shivers, admitting he is totally clueless. But besides the boss, every single lackey had their throat cleanly slit with a single terrifying strike. The elders gasp in absolute chaos. Wait a minute, Bigong is supposed to be a spear user. Could that loser actually be a hidden swordmaster? Their fragile egos simply refuse to accept such an absurd plot twist. Seeing their thick skulls rejecting reality, Dong snaps. He tells the boomers to hike up that mountain and see the carnage for themselves. Sensing a complete staff meltdown, Simyong wildly waves his hands, begging everyone to take a deep breath. Even Simyong's brain is completely short-circuiting. He personally knew the monstrous strength that Gugi possessed. Gugi was a certified peak realm martial master. Simyong had literally felt that overwhelming aura himself while running crucial errands for the Orthodox Alliance. Against such an absolute beast, how on earth did a weakling like Bigong wipe him out overnight? Swallowing his pride, Simyong silently admits that even he would be completely slaughtered doing that. Did someone carry him? Maybe Jinbek helped out. But Simyong quickly tosses that absolutely ridiculous theory straight out the window. Jinbek simply lacks the skills to pull off such miracles. Desperate for answers, Simyong decides to spy on his new headache. He turns to Dong asking if he has a VIP pass to the Ghost Shadow Manor. For the uninitiated, the Ghost Shadow Manor is literally the most terrifying underworld assassin network in Murim. Those shadowy creeps will dig up anyone's deepest secrets provided your wallet is fat enough. Simyong ruthlessly orders a full background check on Bigong. He demands to know everything down to what the mysterious man eats for his daily breakfast. With the spying sorted, the dreaded topic of Bigong's sudden promotion finally takes center stage. But one crafty elder flashes an evil grin. He slams down a highly cursed roster of absolute nightmare students specifically picked for Bigong to teach. The room erupts in supervillain laughter. They pat each other on the back, celebrating this wonderfully toxic sabotage. They bet their life savings that Bigong will cry and resign before the assassins even deliver their first report. It is a foolproof trap. A rookie instructor dealing with academy menaces. Total disaster guaranteed. Yet Dong nervously mentions that Bigong merely smiled at the roster. Those foolish elders have zero clue they just walked perfectly into his master plan. Our main character did not rewind the clock just to play pretend teacher. Upon returning to the past, Bigong instantly started plotting his grand strategy against the inevitable demon invasion. Facing a conqueror army of dimensional hellspawn as a solo player is practically suicide. Even an overpowered regressor has his limits. His brilliant solution: if you cannot beat a demonic horde alone, you must build your own legendary army. But he is not wasting time on cannon fodder who got squashed in his previous life. Instead, he plans to forge an unstoppable squad mastering all forms of magic and martial arts. Soon Bigong struts confidently in front of his newly assigned classroom. Staring back at him are the absolute worst, most chaotic freshmen the academy has to offer. While the elders see trash, our hero sees raw, unpolished diamonds with seriously horrible attitudes. Plus, the stuck-up academy snobs abandoned half of them simply for lacking fancy family backgrounds. It is natural for Simyoung and his elitist crew to think this class will break Bigong, but they are completely missing one incredibly important universe-breaking detail. In the previous timeline, two absolute gods hard-carried the war against the demons. The first was an evolutionary realm, martial genius. He became the absolute final hope of Murim, the undisputed leader of the legendary Heavenly Sword Alliance. The second was a phenomenal sniper, commanding a terrifying shadow squad of elite demon hunters. That man single-handedly nuked half the demon army, earning the epic title of demon-slaying divine archer. And those two future main characters, the elders just handed them straight to Bigong on a silver platter. Flashing a terrifyingly bright grin, Bigong warmly welcomes his clueless future legends. The ultimate regressor boot camp officially begins. Meet Gokbong from the 1st Camellia class. This Dragon Tiger Agency meathead is training poor Dan. Dan might be the one-star Sword Clan heir, but this first year is currently a punching bag. Time out, bro, Dan begs his skeleton, practically screaming for mercy after taking a massive beating. But Gokbong isn't having it. He roars like a wild beast, demanding his victim stand back up. People will think I'm bullying you, the giant whines, claiming Dan should actually be kissing his feet. He's gracing a scrub with the legendary Dragon Tiger fists. Dan nervously mutters, "They're a sword clan." Gokbong absolutely loses it, laughing in his face while calling his precious sword skills utter garbage. Fed up with the disrespect, Dan furiously balls his fists, ready to unleash a desperate strike. "Oh, we got a tough guy," Gokbong sneers, threatening to rearrange his face if he tries anything. Reality check. Knowing he'd be instantly crushed, Dan awkwardly drops his hands to avoid a fatal beatdown. Suddenly, classmate Yun Wook-young strolls in, coolly telling the meathead to drop the forced training act. This first-year prodigy hails from the prestigious Yun clan, wielding the notoriously lethal, destructive sword art. Shockingly, the giant actually listens. He backs off, scoffing that Dan just dodged a massive bullet. A completely defeated, Dan mumbles his thanks, but a teacher suddenly kicks the door wide open. "Pack your bags, rookies," the teacher announces, revealing they've all been unceremoniously transferred from Camellia class. The boys are utterly dumbfounded, but their jaws drop when Bigong randomly spawns before them. "I am your new instructor," Bigong proudly declares, earning an immediate glare of sheer disgust from the trio. Gokbong instantly snaps, ordering this absolute nobody to quit spitting such ridiculous, unfunny jokes. Getting kicked out of class was bad enough, but learning under this pathetic scrub absolutely infuriating. The brute keeps yapping until Bigong casually sighs, pointing out the kid's desperately terrible trash talk. He demands basic respect as their teacher, but Gokbong couldn't care less about his shiny title. "I don't care who you bribed," the giant barks, refusing to take orders from a total loser. Seeing the brat won't shut up, Bigong smirks. Time to weaponize the Sacred Academy rulebook. Citing Article 3, Clause 5, Bigong literally spams the blink spell, teleporting directly into his face. Gokbong freezes in terror. Before his brain registers anything, Bigong ruthlessly stomps on his foot. The giant squeals like a pig and drops to his knees while Bigong cheerfully quotes school policy. Instructors have full authority to aggressively discipline naughty students, the rules decree. Free pass to SmackDown. Instead of tapping out, the enraged meathead grinds his teeth and winds up a massive hook. Blinded by absolute fury, he unleashes his ultimate overpowered move, the Dragon Tiger Mountain Splitting Fists. He aims to obliterate this annoying teacher, but Bigong casually weaves through the deadly combo like water. Our overpowered instructor casually recites boring rules, mid-dodge, moving way too fast for human eyes. Before the giant's single brain cell can process anything, Bigong buries a brutal punch into his chest. The insane impact practically resets Gokbong's internal organs. His face twists into pure, unadulterated comic horror. "Your martial arts are pathetically weak," Bigong critiques, cheerfully treating the bully like a speed bag. The brute completely collapses after the merciless combo, but our chaotic teacher is just getting started. Get up for round 2, he goads cheerfully. Meanwhile, Dan watches this sheer madness from the sidelines. Dan's jaw is touching the floor. He cannot fathom seeing the untouchable bully getting completely destroyed. This guy dominated every single freshman during the brutal external arts training arc. Yet here he is, getting tossed around and thoroughly embarrassed like a helpless level 1 noob. The giant groggily tries standing only to eat a devastating high-speed knee straight to his massive face. A brand new flavor of agony unlocks. The other cadets stand paralyzed, absolutely traumatized by this beatdown. Pure terror fills Gokbong's eyes. The brutal reality hits him. This weird instructor is a total monster. He pathetically crab walks away from the approaching menace. Bigong sighs, terribly disappointed with his very first class. Suddenly, Yun jumps into the chaotic fray, decisively snatching the instructor's fist, before another brutal strike lands. Bigong just smirks, knowing Yun was the terrifying Heavenly Sword Alliance leader before regression. In the previous timeline, Yan hailed from a wildly prestigious family within the Central Plains, hailed as a monstrous martial prodigy since childhood. Even among Dragonspring Academy's fresh recruits, his absolute dominance made everyone else look completely pathetic. His heaven-defying talent was simply too massive for a mere academy to hold. By age 20, he beautifully shattered historical records, ascending as the absolute youngest Supreme Peak Martial Master ever known. Standing proudly among the Orthodox faction's top 10 elites, he was truly destined for glorious greatness until the vicious demonic horde shattered everything. When the terrifying demonic invasion sparked, he threw himself into the bloodiest front lines more than anyone else. Tragically, his proud family became the primary target for the demonic swarm, entirely erased from existence in a brutal massacre. He was the sole surviving heir, yet instead of drowning in miserable despair, his indomitable spirit burned even brighter. He rose from the bloody ashes, roaming the Central Plains to slaughter countless demonic scum. Uniting shattered survivors, he forged an unstoppable alliance, bridging both orthodox and unorthodox factions. Facing an absolutely apocalyptic nightmare, he fiercely commanded the last standing heroic warriors in a glorious, desperately bloody final stand. Bigong vividly remembered Yan's majestic, godlike presence. That absolute beast fearlessly spearheaded every single hellish, blood-soaked battlefield. Unleashing his blinding sword aura, he instantly obliterated even the most colossal, terrifying demonic behemoths in one single majestic strike. Undeniably, Yan was the legendary savior and the ultimate final hope of the entire martial world. Fast forward to today, he is just a ridiculously arrogant, utterly spoiled young master. Bigong violently swats his hands away, making the haughty Yan smirk at the sudden outrageous audacity. Challenged by Bigong, Yan arrogantly snickers, completely bewildered that a trash-tier assistant instructor has magically awakened some massive strength. Sure, the sudden power-up is shocking, but Yan is absolutely disgusted seeing Bigong shamelessly flex to violently bully mere cadets. To Yan, this showboating behavior is just hilariously, utterly pathetic. Seeing poor Gok beaten to a bloody pulp, Yan mockingly asks if Bigong stumbled upon some cliché heaven-sent fateful encounter. Bigong blinks in mild shock. How does this spoiled brat even know classic martial world tropes? Catching Yan's intense curiosity, Bigong smirks, promising to reveal his deep secret only if Yan obediently submits to his hellish training. Plot twist. Yan coldly rejects the offer. He fiercely growls, accusing Bigong of using shady tricks to manipulate the class rosters. Threatening to file an official grievance with Academy brass, the arrogant prodigy dramatically turns his back, spitting out his final insult. I refuse to learn from a trash instructor drunk on a single stroke of dumb luck, he practically sneers. As the top-tier bootlickers scurry after Yan, Bigong casually drops an absolute bombshell that freezes the entire room. He loudly calls Yan out, mercilessly mocking the genius for barking like he is some untouchable god. Deeply annoyed by Yan's supreme superiority complex, Bigong suddenly grabs the terrified Dan by the shoulders with an incredibly sinister grin. Give me just 10 days, Bigong boldly declares, and I will train this weakling to absolutely crush you. Dan starts sweating bullets in horror. Yan freezes, whipping his head around. He furiously demands Bigong repeat that blasphemy, and the madman gladly obliges without flinching. In front of the gaping crowd, Bigong shamelessly doubles down in 1 week. The class trash Dan will thoroughly humiliate their golden boy. Dan's soul nearly leaves his body, but before he can scream in protest, Bigong ruthlessly slaps a hand over his mouth. Eyes narrow dangerously, Yan asks if this lunatic will stake his life on those words. Bigong smugly agrees. The crazy gamble is finally set. Bigong dictates the extreme stakes if Dan miraculously claims victory in 10 days. Yan becomes his unquestioning disciple. But if the mighty Yan wins, the arrogant instructor will grant him absolutely any wish. Bigong casually swears he will even pack his bags and vanish from the prestigious academy forever. Yan bursts into cold, mocking laughter. He wants absolutely nothing from trash, but warns Bigong to prepare his own coffin. Leaving that chilling threat, Yan storms off Bigong, finally releases his hostage, and Dan instantly screeches in pure, unadulterated terror. Envisioning his own gruesome funeral, Dan hysterically demands why he was used as bait. Bigong tries to calm him, but Dan has completely lost his mind. The crying weakling frantically clings to Bigong, wailing uncontrollably until a massive comedic slap across the face abruptly shuts him up. As Dan faceplants into the dirt, Bigong casually turns to the shocked audience, declaring today's chaotic session totally over. Brushing off his hands, he announces that tomorrow's hellish training schedule will be personally delivered to each terrified cadet. The bewildered students scatter in total confusion. Meanwhile, a pulverized Dan lays glued to the floor, contemplating his impending doom. Bigong cheerfully reminds his victim that winning is the only option. But Dan violently flashes back to his disastrous first sparring match. In his very first official academy duel, he was utterly humiliated and mercilessly crushed to a pulp by none other than Gok. From then on, Gall made his daily life an absolute living nightmare. But get this, that monstrous bully picked a fight with Yan and got completely obliterated. The guy was absolutely demolished without landing a single desperate punch. Even Bigong had to admit, Yan was an absolute beast in combat. Yan's martial arts talent was simply on a whole different level. Knowing this insane power gap, Dan angrily demanded why Bigong threw him straight to the wolves. With a cheeky smirk, Bigong told the panicking kid to chill out. He casually promised Dan that hidden within him lay a power far greater than Yan's. After all, in his past life, Bigong was the legendary demon-slaying divine archer. Still, Dan remained clueless about why he needed this suicidal sparring match. The crazy master just laughed, calling it a piece of cake. Dan simply needed to crush Yan to prove Bigong was the ultimate martial arts instructor. Unsurprisingly, Dan was furious at this selfish logic. Why should he risk his neck just to fix his crazy master's trashed reputation? The poor kid literally saw zero benefit in this nonsense. Why bleed just to prove this eccentric guy wasn't a total garbage-tier mentor? But Bigong flashed a mischievous smirk. The ultimate prize, a golden ticket to finally taste some sweet, glorious revenge. Reminding him of Gall's daily torment, Bigong struck a massive nerve. He asked how satisfying it felt watching that bully get wrecked earlier today. Did that second-hand victory actually satisfy his wounded pride? Or did his blood boil to crush that arrogant punk with his own two hands? Bigong leaned in, dropping a massive truth bomb. That terrifying monster Gall couldn't even scratch a single hair on Yan's ridiculously overpowered head. But through his hellish training, Dan would surpass even Yan. Soon enough, he would wield enough monstrous power to easily make Gall his own personal punching bag. Hearing this wild promise, a spark finally ignited within Dan's eyes. Unlocking that kind of overwhelming power sounded absolutely perfect right now. But surprisingly, petty revenge wasn't his real driving force. The boy simply hungered to shatter his own pathetic limits and finally evolve past his miserably weak self. Bigong grinned like a proud maniac at this warrior's mindset. By dawn, the very next morning, the brutal hell training officially commenced. Dan faced down a battered wooden dummy while his master lounged comfortably on the roof. Bigong ordered him to attack, needing to properly measure his pathetic combat stats. He yelled at Dan to picture Yan's annoying face on the wood, sparking some desperate fighting spirit. He commanded the kid to unleash his entire martial arts arsenal. Fired up, Dan roared. He launched a furious storm of relentless strikes, battering the poor wooden dummy without mercy for quite a while. The second his burning muscles dared to slow down, his demonic master shrieked from above, demanding even more explosive speed. Pushing past his limits to impress his crazy master, Dan's footwork completely collapsed. He face-planted directly into the hard dirt. Coughing violently, sweat poured down his completely exhausted face. Bigong finally casually hopped down from the roof to check on him. Staring down, Bigong sharply asked if the kid knew his fatal flaw. Catching his breath, Dan immediately shared his deeply frustrating internal theories. He confessed that during basic forms, his precious inner ki just randomly vanished into thin air like a leaky bucket. At first, he panicked, thinking he totally butchered his family's martial arts, so he obsessively double-checked his stances countless times. But his foundational forms were absolutely flawless. Ruling that out, Dan dreadfully assumed his actual core dantian or energy meridians were totally defective. Desperate, he sought multiple expert medical evaluations, but tragically, every single expensive examination revealed absolutely nothing physically wrong with his body. Crushed by reality, Dan accepted he was just born hopelessly talentless. But Bigong simply smirked, calling his entire depressing conclusion utter garbage. The master then dropped a shocking revelation. He casually explained that Dan's internal energy pathways were actually unusually massive compared to normal people. Dan's jaw practically hit the floor. Stunned, he desperately begged his master to fully explain this crazy medical diagnosis. Bigong calmly restated the facts. Dan was literally born with a ridiculously expansive network of spiritual energy meridians. In the martial world, this freakish constitution was an incredibly rare, heaven-defying cheat code, filled with massive hidden benefits. But sadly, his youth meant his ki reserves were pathetically low. Bigong explained that every true martial artist needs to continuously project their explosive aura outward. That roaring power brews in the core, firing right out through the meridians. But Dan's internal pathways were basically massive echoing caverns. With his pitifully small ki output, the energy just aimlessly rattles around inside. That was the exact annoying reason his power kept fizzling out into nothingness. A literal lightning bolt of realization struck Dan. He had never heard such a brilliantly logical breakdown of his body in his entire life. Bigong shrugged it off, having only discovered this cheat knowledge in his past life. Gazing at his master, Dan suddenly sensed an overwhelming, mysterious aura surrounding him. There was definitely some terrifying, godlike secret hiding behind that goofy smirk. But cutting the tension, Bigong sharply clapped his hands abruptly, ending the lore drop. With the annoying root cause finally exposed, it was officially time to forcefully correct this massive internal glitch. Hope flared violently in Dan's chest. Could this hopeless curse actually be cured? Smiling confidently, Bigong guaranteed an absolute foolproof method to rewrite his destiny. Honestly, the fix was ridiculously straightforward. Because his energy channels were practically wide-open highways, his tiny spark of ki just couldn't accelerate properly. The ultimate answer: he simply needed to violently stuff his core with absurd overflowing amounts of pure internal ki. Dan snapped perfectly back into his combat stance, his burning eyes locked onto the wooden dummy with a newly awakened deadly focus. Since they couldn't magically generate decades of inner energy overnight, Bigong smirked. He promised to pass down a singular forbidden shortcut, tailored just for this crisis. The insane secret trick, violently hoarding all his aura deep inside and only unleashing the explosive pressure exactly when his basic strike finally connects. Once his ki reaches its peak, absolute destruction is unleashed. Following Bigong's bizarre guidance to the letter, Dan finally awakens his true focus. He charges the target. In a blinding flash, the training dummy is cleanly sliced apart. Thanks to this crazy method, his hidden potential finally explodes. Trembling with pure hype, he stares at his own hands. The master smirks, proud of his stubborn disciple. Meanwhile, Dan screams about his newfound godly strength. Bigong nods calmly, but he warns the brat to chill before his body gives out. Dan just laughs it off, feeling more alive than ever before. But mid-brag, his eyes roll back and he instantly faceplants into the dirt. Waking up groggy, Dan claims he merely slipped, though his master clearly saw the embarrassing knockout. Questioned about his condition, the pathetic disciple whines that his limbs feel like absolute jelly. Bigong sighs. He explains this intense fatigue is just a tiny penalty for forcing his dormant aura open. Because his trash-tier meridians were completely unused, the sudden surge of internal arts totally short-circuited his fragile system. The old master casually adds that this crippling exhaustion will naturally vanish in a few months. Hearing this, Dan sighs in relief. Then his brain finally registers the terrifying time frame. Months. Absolute panic sets in. His life-or-death tournament match is literally 7 days away. Forcing himself to stand, Bigong hits him with the harsh reality of two massive flaws. First, whenever he activates his ultimate strike using gathered ki, every single drop of spiritual power evaporates instantly. His pathetic vessel simply shatters from the insane recoil. Dan completely collapses. Second flaw, his mana center is criminally tiny. Pre-charging energy is impossible, and his stamina burns out ridiculously fast. Forcing a pre-charge wouldn't just knock him out. He'd suffer from demonic chi deviation, a totally fatal mistake. Dan nervously nods along, but his trembling eyes lock onto the menacing wooden stick in his master's grip. Ignoring his panic, Bigong tells him to drop the useless overthinking. The real strategy lies ahead. The genius plan. Simply start absorbing atmospheric chi right after the deathmatch officially begins. Questioning his charge time against the wooden target, Dan proudly admits it took exactly 7 minutes. Bigong scoffs in disgust. Surviving the monstrous yawn for 7 whole minutes is pure fantasy. The only viable survival tactic: run and dodge like a madman until the internal battery fully charges. Realization strikes along with the wooden staff. Bigong swings ruthlessly, but the frantic disciple narrowly evades the blow. The relentless master lunges again. He orders Dan to ignore the pain and desperately focus on gathering ki. Casting a high-tier phantom step, the master creates terrifying afterimages to crank up the torture. Dan's evasion completely fails, catching a brutal thwack right across his skull. As Dan cries in agony, Bigong mocks his weakness. That hit had zero aura. He barks at the bruised boy to stand back up. Covered in lumps, Dan furiously curses this barbaric regime. Suddenly, the master's playful aura turns terrifyingly cold. Does this look like a prank? Bigong coldly states, his flaws are exposed, so surviving this hell is the only cure. Dropping absolute facts, he declares Dan will be slaughtered by Yan unless he undergoes an insane 7-day metamorphosis. Yes, this path is absolute agonizing torture, but forging through this bloody hell is his sole chance to rewrite his destiny. These heavy words ignite a furious fire within the underdog's heart. Wiping his face, he bows deeply, screaming for the hellish evasion boot camp to resume. He arrogantly vows to survive a full 24 hours of beatings to grasp true strength. Pure adrenaline made him say that. Inside, he is absolutely terrified. Still, the master smirks, loving this foolish bravery. Cracking his knuckles, Bigong gleefully announces this nightmare will literally not stop for 7 entire days. Before the words register, the master blitzes forward, leaving the poor kid crying for his life. 7 days later, the legendary deathmatch arrives. The grand arena shakes as both rivals finally enter the blood-soaked stage. Yan radiates absolute arrogant perfection. Meanwhile, Dan looks utterly battered, but his eyes hide a terrifying tiger's glint. The crowd laughs, expecting a merciless one-shot execution. Some poor souls actually bet on Dan, mostly because they watched Bigong use him as a human punching bag all week. Gawk glares from the bleachers, absolutely convinced our boy is marching straight to his funeral. He mutters that Dan should have just stayed hidden, like a good little background mob character. Mentally, Gawk ruthlessly roasts Dan for trusting Bigong. He is absolutely certain Yan will completely wipe the floor with him. Right before the opening bell, Yan suddenly hits Bigong with a major plot twist. He originally claimed he wanted 0 prize money, but suddenly he has a brand new demand. Bigong tells him to spit it out, and Yan drops a massive bombshell. If Yan wins, the crazy instructor must pack his bags. Naturally, Bigong smirks and accepts. But he reminds the arrogant kid that losing means becoming his absolute unquestioning obedient servant. Bigong casually points back toward the ring. Speaking of our main character, Dan is suddenly radiating a completely different terrifying aura. The crazy teacher finally announces the rules. You only win if your opponent taps out crying or gets knocked out cold. Disarming the enemy also counts as a win. And since Bigong is the sole referee, his wildly biased word is absolute law. With the insane stakes finally set, the referee officially begins this legendary showdown. Immediately, Dan feels his arm violently ripped away. He flinches hard, but wait, Yan has not even moved a single inch from his spot. A cold voice whispers surrender. Dan realizes his arm is perfectly fine. That phantom pain was just the sheer weight of killing intent. It hits him like a truck. Yan could have sliced him up, but the arrogant jerk just wants an easy bloodless forfeit. That terrifying realization breaks his composure, and his legs tremble uncontrollably. Intense regret washes over him. Why on earth did he challenge the absolute final boss? Panic sets in. He literally only trained for 7 days. Sweating bullets, he glances outside the ring and locks eyes with Bigong. That demonic glare screams one clear message. If he loses to Yan, his crazy master is going to beat him 10 times harder. Suddenly, a fire ignites inside him. He remembers his core motivation, the burning, desperate hunger to level up and escape, being absolutely weak. He made a blood promise exactly 7 days ago, and he is fully ready to cash it. Seeing the fighting spirit return, Yan sighs. He openly calls Dan a completely brainless fool for throwing away his one golden ticket out. He warns that mercy time is officially over. In a flash, Yan explodes forward, unleashing a catastrophic sword strike aimed at his face. But dropping every single jaw in the arena, Dan raises his blade. He parries the devastating blow with literal precision. The kinetic shockwave sends him skidding backward. He coughs, realizing this monster hits way harder than a runaway freight train. His internal aura rattles, almost shattering. Annoyed by the block, Yan drops the nice guy act and charges a terrifying skill. He unleashes the legendary Berserk Dragon's Rage Torrent. A massive energy storm erupts, and Dan knows he is cooked. The blade carves through the air, but somehow Dan miraculously steps aside. Yet the mere wind from the slash feels like flying razor blades. The sheer spiritual pressure is suffocating. Yan furiously throws another lethal combo, but Dan miraculously slips right past it. A goofy, triumphant grin spreads across his face. Wait a minute, his hellish training actually gave him Ultra Instinct dodge mechanics. The crowd loses their absolute minds. Even the arrogant swordsman realizes this punching bag actually evolved into an untouchable, evasive ninja. Furious Yan triggers his ultimate move, the Twin Dragon Fang Severance. His speed skyrockets, creating terrifying afterimages that look like 2 clones. A deadly pincer attack closes in, but instead of panicking, Dan casually remembers his own master using the exact same bullying tactic. The crazy instructor already beat this pattern into his muscle memory. Relying purely on his traumatic reflexes, he flawlessly evades the deadly trap. He vaults right over the strike, landing flawlessly while drenched in nervous sweat, but the angry rival immediately spins right around for blood. A furious flurry of strikes rains down Dan, backflips wildly as the relentless assault reveals the truly monstrous agility of a genius prodigy. Every single slash is a pixel-perfect kill shot. Dan aggressively swallows his fear, fully acknowledging he is dancing with a top-tier martial artist. This guy is a future legend of the Central Plains. Dodging his attacks is like playfully weaving through a literal rainstorm. Despite the terrifying odds, our boy grins like an absolute maniac. He hypes himself up, trusting his brutally traumatized body to keep dodging. A massive light bulb goes off. This supposedly elite sword art is the exact same basic combo Bigong spammed to torture him all week. Reading the patterns like an open comic book, Dan casually sways through every deadly transition with absolute hilarious ease. Out of breath and utterly humiliated, the supposed sword genius is forced to retreat without landing a single scratch. The spectator stands, literally erupt in chaotic disbelief. Did the untouchable top ranker really just get styled on? Pandemonium breaks out in the peanut gallery. Everyone screams, desperately trying to calculate how this impossible underdog physics is even working. Coping fanboys claim he is just holding back. Meanwhile, our sweating antagonist is having a total existential crisis, wondering why his attacks magically miss. Gripping his blade, Jan's aura flares. Surprisingly, he apologizes to Dan for calling him a total idiot. Dan freezes in utter shock, but Jan smirks, openly admitting this underdog grew monstrously strong in just 1 week. Baffled by how Dan countered the supreme heaven-severing sword, Jan channels his explosive energy for another devastating strike. Dan pales as pure terror hits him. Jan twirls his blade, summoning a raging blue tsunami of sword aura that looks absolutely terrifying. It is the legendary Fierce Dragon Annihilation. Jan proudly declares he will instantly surrender if Dan somehow survives this monstrous attack. The overflowing pressure of this ultimate technique literally sends shivers down the spines of the terrified crowd in the stands. Gasps echo everywhere. They have never witnessed such an absurd, majestic sword art, leaving the entire arena completely speechless. But wait. In a mind-blowing twist, the whole stadium watches as Dan casually strolls straight into that raging blue tornado. The crowd goes wild with confusion. Has Dan gone completely insane? He boldly marches toward Jan, radiating absolute zero fear. Flashback to last night, Dan looks like a totally battered, half-dead zombie. Master Bigong proudly praises his hellish training. Dan's god-tier dodging skills mean their seemingly impossible mission might actually succeed. Eyes sparkling with desperate hope, Dan asks if his new footwork will let him flawlessly dodge every single strike. Master Bigong bluntly says, no. Dan panics, but Bigong warns that his opponent is definitely no fool. Jan might underestimate him now, but if Dan keeps slipping away like a ghost, that genius will inevitably unleash a brutal counterattack. Bigong smirks, predicting that out of pure frustration, Jan will be forced to unleash his absolute strongest, world-shattering ultimate move. Bigong perfectly demonstrates what that terrifying sword technique actually looks like. He reveals this legendary art summons the devastating illusion of a fierce dragon exploding with an overwhelming tsunami of sword aura. Then comes the brutal reality check. Bigong bluntly states, Dan has absolutely zero chance of dodging this monstrous attack. Retreating is practically suicide. Jumping or stepping back to escape that destructive blast is a completely pointless rookie mistake. That monstrous energy will instantaneously expand, ruthlessly swallowing the entire arena alive. Dan's jaw practically hits the floor. In his trembling mind, this terrifying sword art feels absolutely invincible. But Master Bigong flashes a wicked smirk. He boldly declares that absolutely nothing in this martial world is truly invincible. He exposes the fatal flaw. That raging storm of spiritual energy might look flawless, but it actually hides a massive weakness. The Fierce Dragon Annihilation is purely designed to slaughter cowards. It perfectly destroys anyone foolish enough to panic or run away. Flashing a truly villainous grin, Bigong reveals the crazy secret. The only survival path is to charge fiercely straight ahead. And back in the roaring arena, our underdog Dan does exactly that. Defying all logic, he marches right into the chaotic storm. Bleeding from minor cuts, Dan fearlessly advances straight toward his opponent. Master Bigong had already predicted every single combat outcome. He predicted that the arrogant Jan would completely freeze up the second his invincible technique was boldly exposed. In that tiny window of panic, Jan is wide open. Bigong ordered Dan to channel every ounce of his burning rage and strike. Trusting his master perfectly, Dan unleashes a lightning-fast counterattack, brutally shattering Jan's precious blade before he can even blink. Paralyzed by shock, Jan watches his legendary blade literally explode into tiny pieces right before his eyes. Yan is officially crushed. The crowd erupts in deafening cheers, while Bigong proudly catches the exhausted Dan asking how victory tastes. But amid the wild celebration, the Academy's worst haters are seething with pure rage, especially the utterly furious Gok. Gok's brain practically short-circuits in denial. Meanwhile, Bigong asks if his disciple is thrilled, and Dan happily shouts an emotional yes. Fast forward, Bigong proudly struts into class to officially face his new students. A bet is a bet. The rebellious Yan and his defeated gang are hopelessly trapped inside, forced to accept Bigong as their absolute master. Dan is practically glowing, while Yan violently sulks in pure disbelief. Flashing a devilish grin, Bigong joyfully announces the start of their very first lesson. While Bigong smoothly wins over his class, a hilarious chaotic argument violently erupts between the villainous Simyong and his total circle of clowns. Simyong is practically foaming at the mouth. Their wicked master plan just spectacularly backfired in their faces. Their entire sneaky operation was designed to make Bigong angrily rage quit the academy. But fate laughed in their faces. The cadets are completely worshipping him now, especially his two golden boys, Dan and the formerly arrogant Yan. The villains desperately begged them to leave, but those two stubborn geniuses absolutely refused, fiercely determined to learn Bigong's godly martial arts. Panicking, hard-won clownish goon desperately suggests simply switching their classes again. But Yan ruthlessly threatened to drop out if they tried. Terrified of destroying the Academy's prestigious reputation, the cowardly clowns are now completely cornered. The faction elders were currently sweating bullets, totally regretting handing a generational genius like Yan over to Bigong, an absolute rookie. Naturally, the rest of the gang instantly threw Samyong under the bus. He was the faction boss, so it was his fault. Samyong frantically asked if the rumors of Yan losing to Dan were true. His goons confirmed Yan basically rage quit, cementing his humiliating defeat. Samyong's jaw hit the floor. The legendary Yan clan prodigy actually lost to Dan. This ridiculous outcome made Bigong look insanely suspicious. Samyong slammed his fist, deciding this wildcard instructor had to be stopped immediately. Right then, a magical light bulb went off. They had literally paid the Ghost Shadow Manor for an assassination but got completely left on red. Furious about being completely ghosted, Samyong started trash-talking the organization. He called them a bunch of overrated, stuck-up mercenaries with a massive god complex. Out of absolutely nowhere, a chilling voice whispered, telling him to strictly watch his loud mouth. The entire room erupted into pure chaos as the elders started panicking like startled stray cats. Samyong barked out aggressively, demanding who was there. The voice mocked his incredibly stupid question while a terrifyingly edgy ninja literally materialized right behind him. Samyong was sweating buckets, completely unable to process how his decades of elite martial arts experience somehow completely failed to detect the creepy guy breathing right down his neck. The shadow lurkers finally dropped their stealth modes, officially revealing themselves as the dreaded elite assassins from the Ghost Shadow Manor. Acting like a total boss, the squad leader Ghost Shadow 1 demanded the full scoop on their target Bigong. Trembling Samyong hastily shoved a very questionable hand-drawn portrait of Bigong into the ruthless assassin's awaiting hands. Escaping the embarrassing elders, Shadow 1 held a totally serious rooftop huddle with his underlings Shadow 5 and Shadow 7. The ninjas furiously gossiped about how crazy it was that Samyong blew a massive fortune just to cyberstalk a guy from his own academy. The irony was hilariously thick, considering this stuck-up academy always played the righteous heroes to outsiders. Shadow 5 casually broke character, joking that they were basically the same trash, since they also gladly scavenged on those dirty, corrupt corporate funds. Shadow 1 instantly snapped angrily, reminding Shadow 5 about their super serious mission. Apparently, they were blood-sworn to grind low-level dirty quests until they finally located their destined true master to serve forever. Shadow 5 quickly bowed in panicked apology, and his boss sighed, letting it slide. He then ordered the rookie to focus up. They debated running a background check on Jinbek, but Shadow 1 vetoed it, demanding laser focus on the main prize, Bigong. Meanwhile, Shadow 7 piped up, asking if the boss actually bought into the ridiculous myth about Bigong's fated encounter. Shadow 1 scoffed, telling his squad to stop reading fantasy novels. However, Shadow 7 was totally geeking out over the wild theory. He pointed out the crazy plot hole Bigong was magicless, until recently, then boom, an instant overpowered martial arts master. He firmly believed someone pulled a fast one behind the scenes. Naturally, the theory of Bigong having a mega-rich sugar daddy backer arose. They figured Samyong's salty little book club already suspected this secret, hence the highly paid stealth investigation. Shadow 1 dramatically warned that Bigong might be a hidden final boss, strongly urging his squad to keep their stealth mode at maximum capacity to avoid detection. Shadow 7 proudly puffed his chest, bragging that no mere mortal could ever magically bypass the legendary cloaking hacks of the almighty Ghost Shadow Manor. Fueled by misplaced confidence, the ninjas vanished. Cut to broad daylight, where Jinbek and Bigong were just casually chatting outside. Jinbek dramatically sighed, mentioning that Bigong's infamous name was officially trending everywhere. Jinbek was seriously stressing out, warning his friend that the jealous haters were already plotting his absolute downfall. Bigong just smirked like a total chuny, claiming that haters only validate a true hero's journey, so he was completely chilling right now. Jinbek wiped a fake tear, deeply thankful that Bigong stumbled into that crazy plot armor power-up because it literally changed everything. Jinbek shivered, noting it would be an absolute nightmare if Bigong lost to Dan, especially with petty Samyong actively trying his hardest to cancel him. Hearing this brutally triggered Bigong's past life trauma. Before hitting the reset button, he actually ate dirt against Dan. His shiny assistant badge was brutally revoked, instantly demoting him to miserably scrubbing the academy's filthy floors. Unable to stomach the massive public embarrassment, Bigong rage quit the academy entirely. He aimlessly wandered the world until accidentally stumbling into a rugged escort warrior job. Despite possessing zero mana or inner energy, Bigong grinded like a madman, maxing out his pure physical stats and spear-poking skills through sheer bloody stubbornness. After surviving countless bandit ambushes and hardcore delivery quests, Bigong somehow miraculously leveled up into a rank 1 escort warrior. Bigong spent the next 10 grueling years essentially playing a medieval delivery boy. He scoured the Central Plains, building up a massive underground information network. Then, feeling incredibly nostalgic, Bigong visited Dragon Spring Academy just to say hi. Coincidentally, that was the exact freaking day the demon army decided to raid. Reliving this absolute tragedy, Bigong's blood boiled. He furiously grabbed a rock and yeeted it. Jinbek flinched in pure confusion, wondering why his supposedly cool friend was suddenly beefing with the landscape. Bigong simply shrugs. An ugly frog caught his eye, and his hand just slipped. Jinbek snaps at him for bullying innocent wildlife. But our shameless main character fires back, reminding the old doc who force-fed him frog medicine back in the good old days. The old medic is left completely speechless, but here's the punchline. Elite assassins Shadow 7 and Shadow 5 are crouching right in the rock's crash zone. Smack. The projectile nails Shadow 7, blowing his face up like a red balloon. Shadow 7 panics. Did this brat pierce their perfect stealth? But Shadow 5 brushes it off as ridiculously dumb luck. He sternly lectures his swollen partner. Never question the legendary cultivation of Ghost Shadow Manor over a totally random fluke. Nodding along, the bruised assassin swallows his pride to keep watch. With their unpredictable target finally strolling back to his room, their only choice is to stick to the shadows and observe. Safely inside his quarters, Bigong flashes a sly grin. Phase 1 is officially in the bag. His genius mind shifts gears. Time to recruit a certain fiery female. Is the stage fully set for her grand debut? Mid-thought, the brooding young master Yon barges right through his door. Yon stops in his tracks. The mysterious guy is staring right at him, anticipating his exact arrival. Bigong chuckles, knowing the kid's burning impatience would eventually drag him here. Yon simply glares, absolutely baffled by the sheer unfiltered arrogance radiating from this guy's cocky smirk. Playing coy, our main character asks why he is visiting. After an agonizingly tense silence, the proud heir finally spills his guts. He brings up the crushing duel with Dan. How did a mere servant predict his every single strike? At first, Yon blamed it on brutal training, but his martial instincts screamed that something else was entirely wrong. Those were not just quick reflexes. It felt like Dan held the ultimate cheat code to his clan's most secret aura pathways. The burning question finally drops. Did Bigong leak the absolute weaknesses of the Yon family's sacred sword path? How could an absolute nobody from the outside possess such terrifying insight into their devastating heaven-shaking techniques? Dripping with sarcasm, Bigong yawns and praises their famous art. Everyone knows how mighty it is, right? Claiming it is just public gossip does not fool the sharp young master for a second. Yon furiously fires back that such divine knowledge is strictly guarded from commoners. He angrily accuses the main character of playing him for an idiot. In response, Bigong slow claps for his sharp intuition. Honestly, our protagonist would have been deeply disappointed if the kid had bought that cheap lie. The tone turns deadly serious. If Yon truly wants to become his disciple, he needs to drop the massive ego. He knows exactly what is eating the young master alive. Yon does not just want answers. He is desperate to know the fatal flaws of the supreme dragon heaven. Severing sword technique. Forged through centuries of blood and sweat, this legendary art has been the clan's ultimate pride. It is fiercely hailed as the absolute pinnacle of swordplay across the entire Zhongyuan. But our sharp-eyed master calls his bluff. He knows Yon sensed an unsettling hitch while swinging his blade. The young prodigy's instincts are too good. He secretly realized this invincible technique has a massive, gaping blind spot. Yet burdened with the heavy crown of the air, he forcefully buried that terrifying truth deep inside. Struck right in his absolute pride, Yun clenches his jaw. He barks at Bigong not to disrespect his family's legacy, but Bigong cuts him off. Stop deceiving yourself. A storm is brewing, and soon noble titles and status will be completely worthless. The only thing that should consume his mind right now is the desperate need for raw, heaven-defying power. He orders the kid to shatter his mental chains, discard the useless pride, and focus solely on explosive growth. The ultimate master leaves it at that. When Yon is finally ready to bow his head, the real teachings will begin. Until then, he just needs to trust his martial instincts. Out of nowhere, Bigong casually hoists his hard wooden pillow. A confused Yon asks what he is doing, but the main character just flashes a devilish grin. Whoosh! He hilariously chunks the heavy pillow straight out the window, just squashing another annoying frog, he claims. Meanwhile, under the pitch-black night sky, the three elite assassins are still lurking, spying on the quiet compound. Their primary target is Old Man Jin Bake, trying to dig up dirt on anyone close to our main character. According to their top-secret intel, the guy is just an ordinary doctor from Gamsu who transferred to the academy 5 years ago. Sure, he has decent healing skills, but there is absolutely zero trace of any hidden martial arts aura. The background check is completely clean with nothing else to report. Though Shadow 1 assumes he is a regular nobody, his killer instincts suspect a dangerous hidden secret. Suddenly, the leader freezes. He stares at Shadow 7's comically disfigured, lumpy face and demands an explanation. The poor ninja sobs. That absolute menace has been casually hurling objects at his face all day long. Sweating bullets. Shadow 1 asks if their stealth was broken. Shadow 5 furiously shakes his head. Our main character did not even react, but Shadow 7 is already sweating bullets, entirely convinced Bigong knows their exact location. Shadow 1 furiously scolds his junior for doubting their supreme stealth, blaming the recent disasters on pure dumb luck. He demands 7 toughen up, boasting about surviving far worse hells. Sobbing quietly, poor 7 nods in absolute misery. Desperate to avoid another humiliating disaster, the ninja squad relocates straight into the garden. 7 vows to murder Bigong. If one more flying object hits his face, his boss confidently promises complete safety. Traumatized by the day's endless torment, 7 isn't buying it. What if that psycho wakes up and chucks more garbage? Suddenly, footsteps echo toward the garden. They instantly dive into the shadows, only to spot Bigong approaching. True to his chaotic nature, he pulls another wild stunt. Stopping near the bushes, Bigong loudly announces his bathroom break. He whines about chugging way too much tea while Shadow 7 violently trembles in his hiding spot. He prays to the heavens he isn't about to suffer another nightmare. Seriously, there are other ninjas right beside him. Right on cue, a warm shower seemingly rains down on 7's head. His sanity snaps, and he leaps into the open. He screeches at Bigong like a madman. But plot twist. The crazy guy wasn't actually taking a leak at all. It was a hilarious fake-out. Bigong was casually pouring lukewarm water straight out of a ceramic teapot. 7 realized his massive blunder too late. Adding insult to injury, Bigong cheerfully offers the traumatized ninja a refreshing cup. The horrifying truth finally hits 7. This monster knew they were hiding all along, treating them like his personal playthings. Blinded by sheer humiliation, Shadow 7 draws his twin blades, launching a lethal bloodthirsty strike straight at Bigong's neck. Unbothered Bigong conjures a shimmering magical barrier. The invisible wall instantly shatters the steel blades, and Bigong fiercely palms 7's skull. Faster than blinking, Bigong aggressively slams the ninja's face into the dirt, crushing him like a pathetic little insect. Flashing a villainous grin, Bigong warmly welcomes the stealthy rats of the Shadow Ghost Manor. His cover is completely blown. Shadow 5 jolts upright in absolute disbelief, staring at his brutally knocked out junior sprawled across the dirt. Bigong coldly scoffs at the unconscious, 7 declaring this the perfect reward for rudely invading a stranger's private space. Acting completely innocent after crushing a man's skull, Bigong beams a radiant smile and cheerfully addresses them as buddies. Boiling with murderous rage, Shadow 5 prepares to strike. But his imposing leader, Shadow 1, firmly halts his reckless charge. In a flash, Shadow 1 materializes directly behind Bigong, delivering a dark, chilling greeting to the seemingly laid-back instructor. The leader coldly praises Bigong for seeing through their flawless stealth. Amused, our overpowered protagonist simply smirks back at him. Introducing himself as their legendary target, Bigong mockingly crowns Shadow 1 as the pathetic leader of these little tree frogs. A brutal insult calling the elite ninjas utter weaklings. Bigong then taunts the leader, questioning the wisdom of exposing himself. Shadow 1 practically spits venom, vowing that Bigong won't survive the night. Hearing this edgy threat, our hero just bursts into laughter. He playfully asks if the leader is curious about his detection methods, but the ninja is completely done with chatting. He prefers his weapons do the talking. Shadow 1 charges with lethal intent, but our main character doesn't even flinch. Igniting his brilliant mana blade, Bigong effortlessly blocks. The ninja's sword shatters instantly, but he swiftly summons a replacement weapon. He relentlessly dives back into the fray. The clash of steel escalates wildly, forcing Bigong to acknowledge a dangerous reality. Despite lacking Guggi's monstrous brute strength, this shadowy assassin is terrifyingly fast and operates with absolute deadly precision. Worse yet, every single lightning-fast strike is flawlessly aimed right at Bigong's most critical vital points. Our hero quickly senses the dense, terrifying aura coated around the assassin's wickedly sharp blade. Bigong realizes his magical shields will inevitably crumble under this pressure. Parrying forever is simply not a winning strategy. Yet, despite staring death in the face, a fierce thrill washes over Bigong. Finally, a seriously entertaining opponent has appeared. Sparks fly as Bigong violently repels the leader with a massive mana slash, leaving Shadow 5 absolutely stunned by the raw power. Gasping for breath, Shadow 1 speaks up. He realizes Bigong's bizarre combat style completely defies all traditional martial arts logic. The elite assassin refuses to believe some random guy just luckily stumbled upon such overwhelming godlike power. He demands to know if it's forbidden. Demonic Arts Bigong casually brushes it off, asking if the ninja has even seen true demonic power. Besides, the notorious demonic cult crumbled into dust decades ago, so that paranoid theory is completely out of the question. Still, with a cheeky smirk, our protagonist fully admits his mysterious techniques are totally alien to standard martial arts. Hearing this arrogant confession, the desperate leader finally accepts reality. This smiling monster cannot be simply captured or tamed. Annihilation is their only remaining option. Sacrificing everything for his clan's honor, Shadow 1 ignites his ultimate life-risking finishing move. Poof! Shadow 1 vanishes into thin air, leaving Bigong completely shocked. The guy actually whipped out the legendary soul-destroying stride technique. Bigong clocks it instantly. It totally erases your presence, leaving opponents dizzy and completely clueless. The move relies on insane speed. 1 second of panic and bam, you are already sliced up. Just like clockwork, Shadow 1 closes the gap, unleashing the Ghost Soul Slash to chop off his arm. But hold the applause. Before the ninja can flex his victory, he realizes he got totally played. He just sliced a fake before Shadow. One can even process the scam. Bigong completely flips the script. Wham! Bigong delivers a massive hook, sending our ninja flying. Crash. His mask flies off upon impact. Even Shadow 5 sweats watching his boss get absolutely wrecked. Groaning in pure agony, Shadow 1 demands to know how on earth Bigong tracked his movements. Ninjas love bragging about their invisible stealth. Well, joke is on them. Bigong sees them perfectly. Enter his ultimate cheat skill, Search Magic. It acts like a thermal radar, making hide and seek literally impossible. Having established total dominance, Bigong politely suggests they skip the violence and have a nice, cozy chat. Getting outclassed like a rookie, the battered ninja has literally no choice but to listen. Bigong casually drops a lore bomb about the Ghost Manor's true identity, the ancient origin sect. These guys were literal phantoms in the martial world. 0 public appearances. Nobody knew if they were heroes or villains. Their true goals remained a total mystery box. They were fiercely off the grid, so when they were brutally massacred decades ago, nobody even noticed. Only the die-hard homegrown members holding onto their bleeding loyalty actually knew what went down. The absolute units who survived the raid basically rebranded their trauma into the shiny new Ghost Shadow Manor. Now they scurry around as shadow spies. They take on incredibly sketchy jobs just to fund their grand scheme. But every single dirty deed serves one obsessive goal: rebuilding the fallen origin sect from the ashes. It is literally their one and only reason for existing. Shadow 1 is trembling. His mind is blown, hearing this outsider flawlessly expose their deepest secrets. It is utterly humiliating. How could some random guy casually recite their highly classified origin story? Not once in the history of ever had this sacred lore been leaked to the public. Cutting the dramatic tension, Bigong gets straight to business. He demands 2 little favors. The ultimate bribe. Finish the jobs and Bigong will drop the juicy intel he has been desperately seeking. The ninja's fists shake with pure rage. 20 agonizing years of searching, and he found absolutely zilch. Losing his cool, he screams like a madman. Do you even know what we are hunting for? Cool as a cucumber, Bigong smiles. You are hunting for the true blood of the origin sect. Specifically, a legendary bloodline, capable of mastering your sacred arts, the ones rocking that fancy left wrist birthmark right. The absolute panic fades into shock. Bigong is not just bluffing, he actually holds the winning lottery ticket. This lost heir is their holy grail, the entire reason these shadow nerds have been suffering for decades. Shadow 1 is totally speechless. Even upper management in their cult barely knows this top secret intel. He frantically demands to know the source. But Bigong just smirks. No spoilers until you sign the contract, or just keep wasting your miserable life. Swallowing his massive pride, the defeated ninja slowly stands up. He grabs his blade and politely accepts the quest, but warns of bloody revenge if this is a scam. Bigong shrugs off the empty threat, like a minor bug bite, happily handing out the very first mission. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a deadly, gorgeous assassin totally sweeps the floor with some local thugs. She solos the mob squad, casually saving their terrified vice boss for dessert. This absolute scumbag, Mako, and his gang dared to raid a village and violently harass its women. The brave survivors pooled their cash and hired our lethal queen to deliver some hardcore karma. Pinning the loser down completely, she smiles as his inner energy vanishes. He cannot even muster a basic attack. Sweating bullets. Mac pulls the classic boss card loudly, reminding the assassin he is the ruthless gang's vice leader. Spoiler alert, the lethal lady literally could not care less. One swift stab and the boss is totally history. Striking an edgy pose over the freshly defeated villain, her dramatic window staring session gets interrupted by a random messenger bird. Her next insanely unlucky victim, our boy Bigong. Meanwhile, let us quickly cut back to the chaotic master and his clueless students. Bigong is currently micromanaging Dan's training like a tyrant. He aggressively corrects his sloppy footwork and tragic battle posture. Sensing Dan's silent, sassy attitude, Bigong instinctively prepares to dish out his signature comedic smackdown. It is tradition. Dan desperately begs for mercy. He furiously points a trembling finger at Yan, loudly whining about blatant favoritism during their brutal training sessions. Yan is literally standing there like a statue. Bigong brutally shuts down Dan's complaints, reminding him that Yan is simply built entirely different. Dan dares to talk back, earning himself a classic physical correction. Dusting his hands, Bigong casually walks away, sneaking an impressed glance at Yan. He is secretly amazed by Yan's brilliant solo progress. He advises the genius to completely ignore the rigid, boring textbook sword technique moves. Just let your instincts take the wheel. Bigong knows perfectly well that Yan's monstrous innate talent will forge his legendary path. Cue Dan awkwardly popping up again. Did he finish his daily spiritual energy circulation homework? That is a solid no. The poor guy is having a total existential crisis. He seriously doubts his actual ability to move his spiritual life force around. Can he really pull off this impossible training? Bigong bluntly shuts down the whining, saying he literally has zero choice. He brutally reminds him that the only escape from this slump is to painfully grind and hoard massive internal energy. Did he at least buy some overpowered magic elixirs instead? Dan awkwardly shakes his head. No. With no pay-to-win items available, Bigong ruthlessly orders him to get right back to the agonizing spiritual energy circulation grind. Looking like a kicked puppy, Dan sadly shuffles away. Deep down, Bigong entirely understands his poor student's massive inferiority complex. Dan's previous victory over Yan was basically just cheap parlor tricks fueling his imposter syndrome. But true power simply cannot be rushed. Bigong sneaks off to grill Shadow 1 about their super-secret operation. The result, 10 whole days of absolutely zero positive progress. This delay could ruin his entire plan. Cue Dong, perfectly ruining the mood by suddenly appearing. Already cranky, Bigong shoots Dong a look of pure, unadulterated disgust. If looks could kill, Dong would be dust. Dong audaciously questions the nasty glare. Bigong smoothly lies angrily, claiming the intrusion is totally interrupting his very important teaching schedule. Dong completely calls his bluff since the guy is literally just wandering around. Honestly, Dong desperately wants to fight him, but remembering Bigong's terrifying power flex in the mountains firmly reminds Dong to keep his fighting spirit deeply hidden. Instead, Dong acts like an errand boy, delivering a strict summons from Simyong to the main hall. Bigong lazily strolls over there. Simyong is anxiously waiting. He immediately corners Bigong, asking how his stressful teaching life has been faring. Flashing a trollish smile, Bigong brags about living his absolute best life with his genius disciples. Simyong looks completely and utterly miserable. Sadly, the principal cannot just fire him. Simyong awkwardly shifts gears, dropping a massive lore bomb about the academy's strict administrative requirements. Answering to the flashy Orthodox Alliance, those snobby higher-ups are highly suspicious of Bigong's sketchy teaching credentials. The mighty alliance is literally stalking his every move. Bigong hilariously plays dumb, genuinely wondering why they care about a random nobody. Cue the dramatic door opening. A gorgeous girl struts in, revealing herself as the very intimidating alliance inspector here to judge him. She confidently introduces herself as Mei Solon. However, her chilling aura instantly triggers Bigong's highly tuned danger senses. Something feels extremely off. Ever the smooth operator, he lies about being totally blinded by her beauty. Simyong awkwardly explains she is a rising alliance master. This terrifying girl hit the absolute peak martial realm incredibly early. Simyong practically begs Bigong not to completely ruin this fragile diplomatic relationship. Bigong just chuckles like a total menace, sarcastically promising to be on his very best behavior. Still, his internal alarm bells are screaming. He shoots Mei, a deeply suspicious glare from the corner of his eye. Flashback time. We finally learn about Bigong's secret side quest. He intensely questioned Shadow 1 about the infamous and deadly soul-taking maiden. Shadow 1 nervously nodded, dropping major gossip. This deadly lady is a terrifying freelance assassin who strictly operates alone with 0 affiliates. She literally possesses a flawless 100% win rate against all her targets. Naturally, Shadow 1 has never actually seen her real face, but the dark rumors are wild. Her victims are discovered totally drained of life force, and she is allegedly incredibly drop-dead gorgeous. Shadow 1 totally assumed he needed to assassinate the assassin. Instead, Bigong drops a bombshell telling him to cordially invite her to the academy. Shadow 1's jaw literally hits the floor. While his brain is rebooting, Bigong casually orders him to ditch his secret contract with Sim Young. Making up a totally sketchy excuse, Bigong forces his hand. Shadow 1 obediently messages Sim Young, permanently canceling their extremely shady back alley arrangement. He even bravely offers to tank the massive cancellation fee. Furthermore, he promises Sim Young a far more dangerously competent replacement to finish the job. This is exactly when he reveals the legendary female assassin to Sim Young. Shadow 1 instantly questions this suicidal plan, wondering why they would chase a ruthless killer who never misses her target. She always slaughters her prey, regardless of their overwhelming strength. Shadow 1 sweats nervously, desperately needing the main character alive for crucial intel. His death would ruin everything. Bigong smirks, fully acknowledging her lethal nature, but her terrifying danger is exactly why he wants her. Plot twist: Mei is that absolute powerhouse. No wonder our guy acts so hilariously awkward around her. That night, a nightmare strikes as Bigong relives his apocalyptic clash against the Supreme Demon King. Double-casting activated Void Cannon and Judgment Thunder explode simultaneously, but the monstrous tyrant brushes off the devastating strike like mere dust. The villain coldly sneers, asking if that is his absolute best. Our hero freezes, his eyes trembling in utter soul-crushing disbelief. He just spammed 8th-class legendary magic, yet the Dark Overlord did not even flinch at the catastrophic impact. The demonic ruler mocks him further. "Show me true despair," he laughs, promising a gruesome execution if the hero disappoints him. "Shut your mouth." Bigong roars with blazing fury, unleashing his most devastating trump card, yet the catastrophic atomic burst. A blinding apocalyptic beam surges straight for the tyrant's skull. Incredibly, the Dark Lord simply raises one bare hand, catching the explosive annihilation mid-air. A 9th circle ultimate destruction spell completely neutralized. Bigong watches in pure horror as the monster absorbs the godly energy, effortlessly reflecting the catastrophic magic right back at him. Death accelerates toward him. Panic surges as our hero frantically summons a massive magical barrier to survive the incoming obliteration. But the reflected absolute power shatters his divine shield like fragile glass, thrusting him directly into the cold jaws of death. Bigong suddenly snaps awake, drenched in a cold sweat. He violently grinds his teeth heavily, frustrated by the terrifying trauma. That pathetic memory truly sickens him, yet a confident smirk returns as he acknowledges his monstrous current growth. Ever since returning to the past, his ultimate master plan revolved entirely around recruiting Mei. Locating her was originally a massive headache. Thankfully, Sim Young and the Ghost Shadow Manor perfectly executed his brilliant shadow operations to find her. She is the absolute key to changing fate. Even legendary future powerhouses like Yan and Dan look like mere children compared to her monstrous potential. Shaking off the heavy thoughts, our instructor casually strolls toward the training grounds to inspect his disciples. Instead of practicing, he catches the entire class, completely hypnotized by Mei's solo training session. The disciples are utterly spellbound. Hilariously, Bigong instantly joins their fanboy circle, mesmerized by the gorgeous maiden, breathtaking blade dance. Her footwork flows like graceful water. With every flawless strike, her dazzling blade paints the air with a stunning streak of purple aura. The mesmerizing performance finally ends. She turns around only to find the instructor and his students staring at her like completely starstruck idiots. Mei politely bows to her senior. She softly explains that it was merely a simple morning warm-up routine. "Did I cause a distraction?" she asks innocently. Bigong quickly shakes his head, completely denying it. Actually, he openly praises her magnificent technique. Taking the chance, Mei steps forward, quietly requesting a private conversation. Her angelic voice literally paralyzes the entire group. The boys hilariously look around, wondering who the lucky chosen one is. "Wait me," Bigong points at himself awkwardly. She gives a gentle nod, inviting him to share a quiet, peaceful stroll together. Sensing the serious undertone behind her soft gaze, our hero quickly accepts the lovely invitation. As they walk, he praises her brilliant aura. "Your flawless blade mastery truly proves the noble strength of the Orthodox faction," he smiles. She smiles humbly, deflecting the heavy praise. "The martial arts realm is vast, hiding countless legendary masters far beyond my current realm." She then turns the spotlight back onto him, admiring his truly phenomenal teaching abilities. Bigong tilts his head, entirely clueless about what she is secretly implying. Her eyes sparkle as she spills the truth. She knows about his epic arena victory. Plus, rumors say he completely annihilated the terrifying Green Forest Alliance alone. Those god-tier achievements prove one thing. His hidden strength vastly eclipses her own. A subtle grin crosses his face. This clever girl definitely did her deep background research. Playing the humble fool, he waves it off. I just got insanely lucky with a fateful destiny encounter, which is nothing truly worth bragging about. But she completely rejects his modesty. The disciples have been endlessly chanting his legendary praises all morning. They revealed his brutally harsh training, but deeply respected his fair, completely unbiased dedication to their explosive growth. He blinks, genuinely touched by those brats. Suddenly, her soft gaze drops directly down toward his scarred hands. She intensely analyzes the deep, hardened calluses. Those rugged muscles scream of at least 10 full years of absolutely relentless, blood-sweating weapon mastery. Her sharp senses easily read his hidden history. Endless cycles of agonizing, tearing, bleeding, and healing forged into unstoppable iron. Hold your head high, she whispers sincerely. Forget sheer luck. Those scars prove you are walking the grand, undisputed path of a true martial god. Bigong pauses, staring at his hands while his brain buffers May's crazy words. Suddenly, May invades his personal space. She demands the juicy details of his supposed fateful encounter. Putting on his best innocent face, Bigong drops a bomb. He sighs, claiming his powers were not some lucky jackpot, nor did he even want them. He admits the whole fateful encounter story was just a massive fib, because honestly, how else could he explain it? Turning around with dramatic flair, he asks the golden question. Has she ever heard of the demonic spirit cult? Boom, trigger word activated. May violently grabs his collar aggressively, demanding how he knows that cursed name. Cue Bigong's evil inner smirk. Hook, line, and sinker, she completely swallowed the bait. Let us do a quick history check. Decades before demons invaded, a terrifying faction ruled the underworld, the legendary demonic cult. Led by the almighty heavenly demon, these guys worshipped pure strength. Thanks to their survival mindset, their numbers exploded. Naturally, the righteous Orthodox Alliance started sweating bullets. They quickly labeled the cult as the absolute public enemy of the Murim world. And just like that, the most chaotic bloodbath in martial arts history kicked off. Welcome to the Great Orthodox Demonic War, a brutal meat grinder where countless legendary martial masters met their doom. After rivers of blood were shed, the Orthodox factions finally cheered in victory, seemingly wiping the cult off the map. For years, everyone happily thought the bad guys were extinct. Spoiler alert, they were totally wrong. The surviving cult members just rebranded themselves like a sneaky corporate startup, now calling themselves the Demonic Spirit Cult. These guys are practically ninjas now. Even the mighty Orthodox Alliance is completely clueless about their shady comeback. The only way to know they exist, you basically have to bump into them in a dark alley. So, back to the present. With May still strangling his collar over the demonic cult, Bigong instantly plays the helpless victim. He dramatically begs her to chill out, promising to spill all the secrets if she spares him. May awkwardly drops him, mumbling a quick apology for losing her cool. Brushing off his clothes, Bigong waves it off like a champ. But then he flips the script. He cheekily asks why she flipped out, hinting she definitely knows about the shady cult. Looking super serious, May admits that the demonic spirit cult is a deeply personal trigger for her. She practically begs him to spill every single honest detail. Meanwhile, Bigong is mentally doing a happy dance. His trap worked flawlessly. Turning his back like a dramatic anime protagonist, he promises to reveal the whole truth. And so the masterclass lies begin. He spins a sob story, claiming it all started right after he became an assistant instructor. He paints a pathetic picture of himself crying over his tragically blocked inner energy. During a sad midnight stroll outside the academy, boom, he gets kidnapped. When he wakes up, a super creepy villain is looming over him. According to his totally fake story, the creep announced Bigong was the lucky winner, chosen to revive their evil faction. To add some spicy flavor, he casually drops the villain's name, the infamous Demon Scholar. May's reaction is instant. She practically vibrates with pure, unadulterated rage, her fists shaking violently. Bigong ramps up the drama. He claims they force-fed him deadly poisons and played crazy doctor with his internal organs. Then, miracle of miracles, he woke up, dumped in their secret base, suddenly bursting with a mysterious new power. But plot twist. It was not normal inner energy, it was the legendary innate core energy. May's jaw practically hits the floor. Playing the tragic hero, Bigong sighs that this power is actually a curse. Why? Because using it literally burns away his own lifespan. Confidently extending his wrist, he dares her to check his pulse and see his tragic reality for herself. Our scheming boy knows he has won. The story is absolute madness, but May is too emotionally invested not to believe him. The hilarious part, the core energy stuff is completely made up, but the cult details perfectly match May's actual experiences. Pushing his luck, Bigong invites her for a fun little field trip to the very hideout where he was abandoned. He admits the place was a ghost town when he woke up, but teases that juicy clues might still be hiding there. Sadly, the evil lair is miles away, making a midnight run totally impossible tonight. So, he smoothly sets up a late-night date for tomorrow outside the academy to act as her personal tour guide. May finally leaves her mind spinning in circles. But honestly, everything Bigong said was absolute garbage. He never even met the cult. And that tragic, innate core energy, yeah, right. The dude is literally just using pure, overpowered magic. Every single word was a beautifully crafted lie to reel Mei in. The best part? He literally plagiarized the whole story from her. Cue a brutal flashback from his actual past life. Bigong is strapped to a terrifying demonic machine suffering actual hellish experiments. Agonizing screams echoed as demonic researchers studied his broken body. Surprisingly, these monsters stumbled upon a fascinating secret hidden within Bigong. They discovered his terrifying hidden potential. Deemed absolute garbage by humanity, the demons actually awakened his sleeping core, constantly pushing his magical limits beyond mortal imagination. Following another hellish daily torture session, Bigong was violently tossed back into the miserable dungeon housing his fellow human test subjects. Despite enduring the most gruesome torment imaginable, this stubborn madman simply refused to kick the bucket. His cellmate happened to be the fierce warrior Mei, who had tragically lost her left arm to the darkness. Leaving Mei behind, Bigong wandered into the desolate forest. Sensing complete isolation, he casually invited his sneaky stalker out of hiding. He instantly recognized Shadow 7's pathetic stealth. Our protagonist obviously knew the shadowy organization would plant a rat to monitor his every move. Narrowly dodging another deadly boulder to the skull, the terrified spy desperately scrambled out from the thick bushes. Deeply regretting his miserable assignment to babysit this psycho, he caught a mysterious scroll casually tossed by Bigong. Bigong smirked, explaining the first page held his designated destination. Meanwhile, the second page contained utterly bizarre instructions to execute upon reaching the target spot. He described an illusionary rocky cave entrance. Once inside, the bewildered spy was ordered to furiously doodle weird murals across the stone walls. Knowing full well the poor assassin could not decipher the cryptic text, Bigong told him to just blindly copy it. His only ridiculous demand was to splatter the cavern with those ancient scribbles before the sun dared to rise. Flabbergasted by this absurd artistic mission, the stubborn spy bravely demanded to know why he should obey such nonsense. One terrifying, murderous glare from Bigong instantly shattered the spy's rebellious courage into pieces. The terrified lackey sprinted away, fueled by Bigong screaming threats to finish the absurd task before tomorrow morning. Despite anticipating a hilariously sloppy overnight art project, our mastermind knew it was perfectly adequate to deeply scam his prey. With his diabolical trap perfectly set in motion, the scene shifts to Simyong, interrogating Mei regarding her covert spying mission. Despite uncovering shocking secrets concerning the demonic spirit cult from Bigong, Mei stubbornly sealed her lips. Playing dumb, she lied straight to Simyong's face, claiming the stubborn target required far more time to properly crack open. Extremely suspicious, Simyong pressured her to dig deeper. Utterly convinced that their eccentric suspect was concealing dangerous mysteries, he nervously warned that Bigong could single-handedly doom the entire Orthodox alliance if tied to an infamous underworld faction. Unfazed, Mei coldly declared her absolute indifference toward whatever shadowy faction the man claimed allegiance. Slamming her deadly dagger into the wooden table, the vicious warrior demanded total authority to slaughter Bigong upon any suspicious movement. Sweating bullets from her terrifying aura, a trembling Simyong hastily granted her complete lethal freedom. A twisted smile formed as Mei secretly prayed he was deceiving her, eager to drain his blood in absolute agony. As dawn broke, our hero comfortably meditated, rapidly refining his inner core using the absurdly expensive top-grade mana stone he swallowed earlier. Sadly, his magical prowess remained pathetically stuck around the 6th circle. Still, he arrogantly calculated that crushing a couple of peak-level martial grandmasters would be an absolute walk in the park. He possessed supreme confidence that only a single monster inside this entire academy could truly threaten his life. Detecting that faint but lethal aura, our protagonist fiercely struggled to overcome the pathetic limitations of his broken lower core. While his legendary meridians were surprisingly flawless, absolutely zero ancient cultivation arts could actually stimulate his bizarre internal pathways. This exact flaw made magic impossible. Yet hilariously, this specific trash-tier trait literally saved his life inside the demon realm. During those dark days, he merely wielded a basic spear alongside incredibly pathetic external martial arts. Rather than instantly executing him, the demonic researchers obsessively hoarded his body, simply because of his absurdly rare physical constitution. Interrupting his deep meditation, an exhausted Shadow 7 completely barged inside. Panting heavily, he reported the mission's success, while loudly complaining about performing such deeply humiliating and totally bizarre chores. Bigong shamelessly feigned complete ignorance, blankly asking what chores he meant, instantly making the poor assassin lose his absolute mind. Right before the spy completely snapped, our troll protagonist chuckled, dismissing the joke and highly praising his pathetic lackey's outstanding labor. With his fake demonic cave fully prepped, Bigong excitedly planned his next move, feeding a massive pile of absolute garbage intel to the vicious May. His scam was not totally flawless, but the illusionary cavern entrance was heavily fortified by an incredibly authentic, lingering demonic barrier. To the foolish eyes of standard martial artists, this terrifying wall would just appear as exceptionally bizarre dark magic. They would swear upon their lives it was a forbidden technique exclusively wielded by the infamous demonic cult. Plus, this juicy bait contains 0-star reviews about the elusive demonic spirit cult. Bigong smirks. He knows May will swallow this hook whole even if she smells a giant rat. Speak of the devil, May dramatically bursts in, declaring she is totally ready to raid the cult's super-secret evil lair. Bingo. Our sneaky main character does a mental victory dance. Time to spoon-feed her some gloriously fake news and dial her revenge meter up to 11. He casually sets the rendezvous point. Midnight right outside the academy gates. Easy enough. Our boy is totally confident he can play her like a cheap kazoo. Why? Because of his ultimate spoiler. Cue the tragic flashback. Back in their demon prison, their final human cellmate sadly kicked the bucket. Bigong furiously hammered the door for a medic. Sadly, the guy passed away, and those lazy demon guards only showed up for garbage disposal. Gloomy May thought humanity was permanently cancelled. But Bigong ever, the optimist. He figured there just had to be other horrible prison camps out there somewhere. Drowning in deep depression, May practically begged the universe for a quick game over. Then, she drops a massive lore bomb. Apparently getting locked in a hellhole wasn't exactly her first rodeo. Plot twist. The demonic spirit cult kidnapped her years ago. Those mad scientists made her a human guinea pig, accidentally gifting her that overpowered energy-absorbing cheat skill. She confesses that Bigong is the absolute first lucky soul to hear this dark origin story. Talk about an exclusive VIP scoop. Bigong is honestly just fanboying that her life-draining cheat skill actually works on monsters. She used to daydream about serving those cultists a spicy plate of revenge, but eventually, she completely threw in the towel. For 10 whole years, she played the worst game of hide-and-seek ever. Eventually, the harsh, ugly truth smacked her in the face. Turns out the cult wasn't some small club. They were an evil mega-corporation totally out of her league. Then she finally spills the depressing reason she even signed up to fight the demon army. While everyone else was doing the whole heroic save-the-world routine, our gloomy girl was literally just looking for a cool battlefield to permanently clock out on. But rotting away in a stinky demon cell, that definitely wasn't on her bucket list. Seeing her mental health hit absolute zero, Bigong stepped up as motivational speaker. He slapped some sense into her, shouting that as long as they were still breathing, it was way too early to roll the end credits. Bigong was way too stubborn to let some ugly demons recycle him like actual garbage. He ordered May to grit her teeth and stay alive no matter what. He even swore on his life that if they miraculously pulled off a prison break, he would personally help her hunt that shady cult and serve them sweet revenge. A bright smile graces May's face. Those words instantly revive her tired spirit. Fast forward to the present, Bigong strides purposefully toward the mysterious cave. Why are these dusty memories suddenly crashing into his mind like uninvited guests? Bumping into May definitely triggered it, but our guy, Bigong, absolutely refuses to catch feelings. His master plan needs May as the ultimate chess piece. Her true potential remains completely locked. He desperately needs her unique powers to finally obliterate the terrifying Demon King once and for all. Meanwhile, May arrives at the rendezvous point. She sweeps the perimeter, checking for sneaky ambushes. With absolutely zero red flags, she buys Bigong's wild tale about the demonic spirit cult's kidnapping. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echo behind her. Expecting Bigong, she spins around, only to face a nasty surprise. A hulking mountain of a man glares down at her. May jolts awake from her nostalgic dream. Snapping back to reality, she finds herself helplessly tied to a pole, surrounded by ugly thugs. Bingo. She got captured by the notorious Black Death sect, led by the giant boss Wisung Tak. These guys are pure scum. They are famous for robbery, kidnapping, and basically every dirty crime under the sun. The boss and vice boss are actually blood brothers. May still cannot process how she got kidnapped so easily. Usually these low-level thugs could never sneak up on her without eating a giant fistful of dirt. Did hearing about the demonic spirit cult completely distract her enough to let her absolute guard drop? Tak gloats about May crushing his brother. He actually assumed she won by using cheap, seductive tricks. Boy, was he totally wrong. May smirks at Tak, mocking his endless chatter. "Are you ready to eat dirt like your brother?" she taunts. Tak chuckles darkly, confessing his first thought was to brutally slaughter her the second she was caught. But witnessing her fierce beauty, his twisted mind changed. He rejoices at claiming such a breathtaking prize. He vows to savor every wicked moment. Smirking Tak threatens to chop off her annoying energy-absorbing hands. He cruelly threatens to toss her straight to his pack of savage lackeys. Afterward, the wicked boss vows to slowly shred her delicate life away, dragging out her ultimate doom piece by agonizing peace. Sunguk smirks, declaring his master plan is complete, and his brother's spirit can finally find peace. Mei simply scoffs, mocking his pathetic scheme as way too garbage to even be called real revenge. Bitter disappointment washes over her. She was literally inches away from annihilating the demonic spirit cult. Instead of epic vengeance, her fate ends here, surrounded by a bunch of low-level street thugs. Failing her mission is her sole regret, but she calmly accepts this miserable end as her destiny. The goons drool with anticipation, urging their boss to draw blood so the twisted party can begin. Bam! Their sick joy instantly shatters into pure terror as Bigong crashes in radiating lion-like fury. A thug throws a desperate punch, but Bigong uses a speed boost, vanishing instantly to choke him from behind. A terrifying purple aura erupts from Bigong. He's absolutely furious these losers almost ruined his perfectly crafted master plan. Thinking of his past 100 years of suffering, Bigong channels devastating lightning bolts straight into his enemy's flesh. The thug fries like a cheap light bulb. The horrifying display leaves nothing but a smoking charred husk. Paralyzed by fear, the remaining thugs freeze until Sunguk screeches like a madman ordering an all-out attack. That pathetic order just adds fuel to his raging fire. He triggers Blink instantly, vanishing into thin air. While the idiots frantically search the shadows, the Grim Reaper is already standing right behind them. Bam! An airburst spell literally obliterates a thug's head. Before the corpses drop, Bigong is already slaughtering the rest. His monoblade tears through flesh, painting the walls red. He stares down at his prey with a devilish, menacing glare. The fools try to flee, but one devastating slash seals their tragic fate. In mere seconds, the room transforms into a literal bloodbath, echoing with the thug's pathetic dying screams. Mei's jaw drops in absolute shock. She simply can't believe this blood-soaked demon is her clumsy academy classmate. Seeing an opening, Sunguk launches a cowardly sneak attack straight toward Bigong's blind spot. Convinced victory is his, Sunguk flashes a psychotic grin, screaming at Bigong to just drop dead. Clang. His weapon connects but bounces right off. Bigong had flawlessly activated the ultimate defensive spell, Stone Skin. Sunguk's eyes widen in sheer horror, finally grasping the terrifying magnitude of this enhanced defensive energy. Before his tiny brain can even process it, a brutal kick shatters his jaw, launching him across the entire room. With Sunguk's face completely caved in, Bigong stalks closer, wearing the utterly deranged smile of a true maniac. Pinning the trash down, he triggers a devastating gravity spell. He leaps high, ready to crush Sunguk's skull into dust. Boom. The impact pulverizes Sunguk's entire body, leaving absolutely nothing behind except a bloody crater. Suddenly, a familiar voice pierces the chaos. He turns to see Mei nervously pointing a sharp blade. Guard up, she demands his true identity. Instantly, the bloodthirsty demon snaps back into his annoyingly cheerful sunny self. Flashing a goofy grin, he happily declares how relieved he is. She's okay, claiming he'd been frantically searching everywhere. After missing her at the meetup, he smiles creepily, bragging about how insanely useful his personal tracking technique is. Unfazed by his bizarre comedy, Mei grips her knife tighter. Bigong mentally curses, realizing this timeline is totally messed up. He sighs inwardly. Relying purely on his past regression knowledge has officially completely backfired. He never anticipated random enemies targeting Mei so early. Panic sets in. Losing her now would completely doom his future. The objective is crystal clear. He absolutely must recruit Mei to stand a chance against the terrifying Demon King. In his past brutal clash against Demon Lord Tarrant, he encountered a truly overpowered skill. Tarrant possessed a maddening nullification barrier, an absolute defense that rendered every single attack completely useless. The harsh truth remains. To secure victory, destroying that cursed barrier is the only viable path forward. Based on all his compiled future knowledge, the absolute only hero capable of shattering that defense is Mei. Mei drains inner energy through physical touch, foolishly believing that basic skill is the ultimate limit of her potential. However, her awakened state can absorb and entirely erase conceptual powers provided she grinds to a high enough level. As Bigong contemplates knocking her out, Mei shrieks in sheer panic, threatening to slice his throat if he dares move. The scene flashes back. A brutal experiment concludes, tossing a screaming, tortured Bigong right back into his miserable cell. Bleeding out on Mei's lap, he desperately clings to life while sadistic demons casually observe him through cold monitor screens. Even the monsters are amazed by his terrifying mental fortitude, surviving despite his body being literally shredded to pieces. But the demons just laughed. They knew Bigong would eventually shatter, because no mere mortal could ever survive the catastrophic levels of demonic mana injected into his very soul. The twisted lead scientist casually shrugged off his impending death. After all, they had already extracted every single drop of bloody experimental data they needed from him. Plus, that mad scientist secretly feared letting this freakishly resilient human live could birth an unstoppable future threat. Watching in horror, May realized the chaotic demonic energies inside Bigong's body were waging war violently, rejecting each other inside him. A chill ran down May's spine. Were these demons actually executing him? Through blood-stained teeth, Bigong weakly begged May to just end his life. The agonizing torture was unbearable. "Stop spouting such absolute nonsense," May screamed, scolding him fiercely. She desperately reminded him they had to survive this hellhole together to claim their bloody revenge. But panic instantly struck. May realized Bigong was already losing consciousness as his body literally crumbled. Pushed to the absolute brink, May unleashed a completely reckless gamble with her hidden powers. Miraculously, Bigong gasped awake moments later. He was utterly stunned to find the agonizing pain vanished and that raging storm of energy completely gone. His mind spun in pure confusion at this miracle, until May's weak voice echoed behind him. Bigong froze in sheer horror. May had recklessly absorbed all that demonic poison, and her body was completely shattering. Screaming her name, Bigong desperately tried to rush forward, but his battered body betrayed him, instantly collapsing to his knees. "Don't move," May gasped out, reminding him he was literally just knocking on death's door. She then revealed a shocking truth about her anti-demon abilities. Her terrifying absorption skills were far more overpowered than anyone realized. She had successfully devoured every drop of lethal energy. But her mortal system couldn't digest such alien demonic power. Coughing blood, May bitterly scoffed that this crazy gamble might have actually worked if she acted sooner. Meanwhile, Bigong was having an absolute mental breakdown. The soul-crushing realization that May was dying completely destroyed him. Through desperate tears, he screamed, asking why she would throw away her life for him. Smiling sadly, May whispered it was because his past words gave her courage to never give up. Bigong sobbed uncontrollably, confessing he only said those words to keep her breathing. Using her final fading ounce of strength, May commanded him to survive. She begged him to live a long life and never forget a girl named May. She whispered one final secret before passing away. Snap back to the present timeline, where a reincarnated Bigong gently tells May to calm down. He promises he would never hurt her, even dropping his legendary blade to prove it, but this deeply suspicious May isn't buying his nice guy act at all. Glaring daggers, May demands to know how this stalker tracked her down. Furthermore, she furiously questions if those ridiculous god-tier moves he used were actually martial arts. She stubbornly shoots down every single word escaping Bigong's mouth. There is absolutely zero chance she's going to swallow this insane fantasy story. Losing her temper completely, May hilariously screams at him to expose his true identity. With an infuriatingly calm smirk, Bigong chuckles, stating that the sheer absolute truth would just blow her stubborn mind anyway. So instead of spouting unbelievable time travel lore, Bigong smoothly announces that he has a special proposition for her. May fiercely demands answers. Bigong drops a massive bombshell. He is going to personally help her completely annihilate that despicable demonic spirit cult from existence. His second insane promise. He swears to power level her martial arts and absorption abilities to absolutely monstrous god-tier heights. May's jaw practically hits the floor as this mysterious powerhouse aggressively info-dumps his plan. To top it off, Bigong boldly declares he will take full responsibility for her life, crushing any enemy that dares to threaten her. But there is a catch. This overpowered protagonist has one single request. May must enroll in the academy just to stay glued to his side. Hearing this incredibly suspicious demand, May explodes in rage. Her mind immediately jumps into the gutter, violently assuming he wants her as his secret mistress. Sweating bullets, Bigong furiously waves his hands, denying her wild romantic delusions. He desperately clarifies that he meant it in the most literal, purely protective way possible. He literally just wants to keep her breathing, but our stubborn female lead isn't buying this nonsense, completely convinced he's just spouting sweet trash to cover his perverted tracks. Paranoid about his highly questionable motives, May absolutely roasts him. She hilariously brands him a shameless pervert and loudly tells him to take a hike. She fiercely declares she would literally rather die than accept his incredibly sketchy proposal. Playing his trump card, Bigong casually mentions her parents, warning her they would be incredibly disappointed if she foolishly rejected his generous offer. Then he drops the ultimate bombshell, calling her by her secret childhood name Lanlin. A sudden flashback hits, revealing her parents discovering her tragically cursed destiny. A mysterious Taoist master warned her parents to name her Skolin. He prophesied that this specific title held profound mystical power. This magical name was meant to protect her through brutal trials. Years later, when May finally grew up, her parents shared this mystical lore, but rebellious May just laughed it off. She playfully roasted them for actually believing that wandering scam artist Taoist. Smiling gently, her parents confessed they had already picked out a beautiful name before that dramatic Taoist ever crashed into their lives. Her true name was Lin, meaning shining orchid. Seeing the deep anxiety in their eyes, Mei confidently promised them there was absolutely nothing to fear. She fiercely swore to obliterate any obstacle in their path. Tragically, a short time later, her beloved parents were ruthlessly murdered. As she sobbed over her fallen parents, the terrifying demonic cult leader suddenly emerged. He declared she was chosen to resurrect their dark faction. This exact memory fueled the massive lie Bigong fed her back at the academy. Meanwhile, inside the shady Black Death hideout, Mei's suspicion toward Bigong absolutely skyrockets. Shoving her deadly blade right under his nose, she demands how he knew the name Lin, a top-secret alias exclusive to her bloodline. Playing it totally cool, Bigong simply shrugs. He admits the actual truth is way too insane for her to ever believe. Swatting the weapon aside, he dramatically turns his back. He declares he has dropped enough hints, leaving the final decision entirely in her hands. But before vanishing, he casually reminds her that his earlier promise was completely legit. With that epic mic drop, Bigong swaggers out. Mei stands there utterly frozen. Her brain short-circuits trying to match this intense badass with the absolute goofball from the academy. Back at the school, Bigong spots Shadow 7 awkwardly loitering. The spy is absolutely flabbergasted that Bigong actually ghosted his elite surveillance. Shadow starts frantically yapping a million miles an hour until Bigong suddenly snaps his neck around. Bigong unleashes a death glare so purely terrifying that Shadow completely loses his mind, screaming about rescheduling as he nopes right out the door. Skipping chores, Bigong faceplants onto his bed, groaning in pure frustration. Morning rolls around. Bigong drags himself to the training yard, but his brain is totally checked out. Mei is taking up all his headspace. He is totally convinced that he fumbled the bag horribly, and Mei will never trust a single word he says again. He figures she completely bailed to launch a solo investigation. Honestly, he would pull the exact same sneaky stunt. Yet his inner mastermind screams at him to hunt her down. She is the ultimate key for a massive scheme he spent centuries plotting. Out of nowhere, a student cheerfully yells a greeting at Mei. Bigong practically gets whiplash, turning around to check. Plot twist. It is actually Mei, glowing with an unsettlingly bright smile. She casually struts over, totally apologizing for crashing his epic brooding session. She aggressively demands a private chat, and Bigong totally agrees instantly. Leaving the clueless students to their sweaty meditation, the awkward duo steps far away to finally clear the air. Mei forcefully checks his pulse. Her eyes widen, realizing the pathetic truth. He really is a martial arts zero. With zero aura flowing through his spiritual veins, Bigong smugly asks if she finally trusts him. Spoiler alert, this only fuels her blazing fury. She loudly rejects him. After swallowing a mountain of his garbage lies, she is absolutely done playing the gullible fool. She despises being played like a cheap fiddle since day one. Adding fuel to the fire, Bigong casually admits he purposely baited her investigation. The horrible truth hits her. She was his pawn from the very beginning. Glaring daggers, she demands to know how he hacked into her family secrets. Since she cannot literally beat the answers out of him, she sighs, ready to swallow his ridiculous lies just one last time. Bigong drops the cocky act, admitting he actually thought she had ditched him forever. Mei coldly scoffs. Running away was literally the only smart and logical option on the table. However, her thirst for destroying the demonic cult burns way too hot. She absolutely needs this weirdo to deliver on his grand promises. She leans in with a chilling threat. If this is another massive scam, she will personally cross oceans just to slaughter him. Flashing a terrifyingly confident grin, Bigong swears he will serve her revenge on a silver platter. Suspicious again, Mei interrogates him about her hidden past. Flashback time. That secret alias was her final dying whisper, after sacrificing herself to save his pathetic life in a cold prison cell. In that tragic past, she begged him to remember her end, not with crushing despair, but with a tiny shred of bittersweet joy. Snapping back to reality, Bigong looks at the current Mei and chuckles. He claims his time-traveling truth is way too sci-fi for her to handle. Meanwhile, drama erupts. Bigong's hardworking disciple, Nyang Soso, gets challenged to a brutal duel by the arrogant elite Mokdan. That stuck-up brat brands their class as garbage, vowing to humiliate them all publicly. Fired up with intense loyalty, Nyang confidently promises Bigong she will defend their underdog honor to the bitter end. Refusing to let the snobby Mok family trample their pride, Nyang immediately dives into an insanely hardcore training montage. Stepping up as an unofficial coach, Mei analyzes her form, completely impressed by her rock-solid fighting stance. However, the mentor spots a massive flaw. Nyang is tensing up like a brick wall. Mei warmly advises her to flow like water instead. At first, Nyang was totally terrified of this mysterious woman. But after surviving her training, she discovers Mei is actually a giant softie with a heart of gold. Thanks to this wholesome sisterly bonding, all of Nyang's stressful battle anxiety magically melts away. Suddenly, Bigong kicks down the door, screaming about massive news. He violently unrolls a flashy scroll reading SPC, proudly declaring it their legendary new class title. The students collectively cringe into another dimension. They start loudly roasting their master for picking the absolute worst trash-tier team name ever. As always, our unhinged master furiously rolls up his sleeves, ready to playfully punch some manners into his disciples. Bigong proudly reveals the absurd name actually stands for Special Purpose Class. He dramatically drops a bomb. They are burdened with an exclusive top-secret class mission. When Dan questions this grand mission, Bigong casually replies, defending the entire Central Plains Murim. Nong totally admires him now, completely forgetting he used to be the Academy's ultimate trash instructor. But last month, he shattered expectations, unleashing mind-blowing martial arts during a totally crazy sparring match. He instantly aced the promotion exam, leveling up to a full instructor and claiming their chaotic class. Bigong constantly spouts nonsense about having a legendary fateful encounter. The students just shrug it off as an absolute win for everyone involved. Mei marches right up to him, furiously scolding him for feeding the kids delusional garbage about saving the entire martial world. Bigong stubbornly claps back deadpan, swearing that the Murim's survival is absolute serious business. Mei demands to know if the Academy actually approved this ridiculous name. Bigong smoothly admits he needs her help to trick the higher-ups. The class awkwardly watches them bicker like a totally chaotic old married couple. Nong realizes their spicy banter actually means the awkward wall between them has completely shattered. Later, poor Nong gets cornered by Manhwa, who is obsessively interrogating her about Yan's status. Nong sweats nervously, totally baffled by this weird obsession, but helplessly spills the tea. Going into storyteller mode, Nong explains that Yan fiercely rejected joining their misfit squad at first, but after totally losing a bet with Bang, he begrudgingly accepted his fate. Honestly, he is basically a ghost. Nong admits Yan undergoes mysterious solo training completely isolated from everyone else. Manhwa instantly snaps furiously, assuming Bigong is blatantly treating Yan like absolute garbage. Panicking Nong wildly waves her hands, screaming that she is getting the plot totally wrong. Internally screaming over Manhwa's scary temper, Nong clarifies she caught Yan secretly crossing swords with Bigong. In fact, Yan is literally the only student blessed enough to directly duel their overpowered instructor. Otherwise, the edgy kid just endlessly stares at the wooden training dummies like a total weirdo. Bigong fiercely guards his focus, yet somehow stubborn Manhwa still twists this into tragic abandonment. When asked if Yan hates this setup, Nong awkwardly shrugs. The guy literally shows zero emotion anyway. Having absorbed her daily dose of Yan gossip, the terrifying girl gang dismisses Nong dramatically, threatening that they are watching her every single move. Once the scary girls vanish, Nong does a victory dance for surviving. Then the ultimate plot twist drops. Yan and Manhwa are childhood fiancés. Meanwhile, Ghost One secretly infiltrates Bigong's rooftop. Despite flexing his absolute max-level stealth techniques, Bigong instantly catches the assassin, brutally mocking his stealth skills as total garbage against him. Bigong sighs, demanding the actual report. In response, Ghost One dramatically tosses over a glass bottle containing a freaky, mutated grasshopper. The Shadow Operative reveals the terrifying results of Bigong's second secret mission. He couldn't pinpoint the exact coordinates, but the creepy target is definitely hidden deep within a completely desolate wasteland between Hubei and Chongqing. Ghost One shudders, explaining that the entire landscape has mutated into a totally cursed nightmare. The spy admits the tracking mission originally sounded absolutely impossible, but finding it was insanely easy. The horrifying anomalies were literally impossible to ignore. The bizarre monsters nearly drove him totally insane. He begs Bigong to explain this madness. Bigong smirks bitterly, claiming the terrifying truth would completely shatter the assassin's fragile reality. Cutting the mysterious act, Bigong drops a chilling fact. Those abominations are harbingers of absolute doom. The demon realm is invading in exactly 10 years. Thanks to his broken knowledge, Bigong easily spotted the early warning signs. 4 years before Doomsday, unrecorded freaky flora and fauna began spawning across the Central Plains. 2 years before hell breaks loose, mutated beasts begin slaughtering humanity. 6 months before the end, bizarre plagues will utterly devastate the remaining human population. A flawless demonic master plan. Those bastards are basically terraforming the world by drowning everything in toxic miasma. This completely flipped the battlefield in their favor, the monstrous tactic. It was known as absolute terraforming. Our guy Bigong only discovered this nightmare after surviving years among those literal demons. He vividly recalls the devastating truth. The first massive dimensional gate tore open right in the Central Plains. Boom. An entire bustling city was completely wiped off the map in just one single day. Following that absolute disaster, the most gigantic dimensional gate ever recorded ripped open in Hubei. His gamer senses are tingling. If that massive gate is already there, traces of horrific terraforming must exist. It was just a crazy theory before, but thanks to the shiny new intel from Ghost 1, the terrifying truth is confirmed. The chilling reality is undeniable. The glorious Central Plains are slowly being corrupted by those filthy monsters. Our main character decides he must march in there personally to check the massive mess and literally invent some epic countermeasures. He pats Ghost 1 on the back for a job well done, promising his sweet reward will arrive in a few days. He basically tells the guy to chill and be patient. Masterminding the perfect plan takes some serious time. But wait, as our hero turns to leave, Ghost 1 hits him with the classic dramatic question, "Who are you really?" He desperately demands to know the ultimate endgame of Bigong. Our guy just smirks, claiming the epic truth would simply blow his mind. With absolute swagger, he promises to spill every single mind-bending detail eventually, even if the poor guy begs him to stop talking. Armed with this juicy intel, our absolute madman decides it is finally time to ditch this dumpster fire of an academy. Meanwhile, Dong casually strolls into the office of Samyong to drop some heavy lore about the upcoming Heavenly Martial Tournament. They have been desperately picking the ultimate cream of the crop, but that stubborn genius Yan flat out refuses to participate. Dong whines about begging him personally, but the absolute sweatlord claimed the epic tournament would just ruin his precious training schedule. Throwing his hands up, Dong completely gives up on Yan, deciding our crazy main character Bigong is the perfect replacement. Even though Bigong totally lacks the raw talent of Yan Samyong, heavily sighs and agrees with that desperate logic. He nervously orders him to ensure it goes perfectly since this huge tournament is their absolute biggest flex. Hosted by the mighty Orthodox Alliance, this legendary Heavenly Martial Tournament features an epic showdown between three ultimate schools. We are talking about the glorious White Martial, the Heavenly, and the absolute powerhouse Dragon Spring Academy. The absolute top prodigies from each academy gather to violently smash their epic martial arts skills against each other. The brutal results entirely dictate how the martial world judges each academy. Hilariously, these two bozos are actually supposed to report everything to their terrifying boss, the legendary Sword Demon. But those cowards decided to run the whole show themselves, since the horrifying Sword Demon has been locked away for 2 entire years. These two absolute clowns are patting themselves on the back when our guy Bigong suddenly kicks the door open. Startled, they demand his business. Flashing a devilish grin, Bigong confidently declares only he and the students should dare to participate. Bam Samyong furiously slams his fist onto the table, completely losing his mind over such an outrageously arrogant demand. Not even flinching, Bigong coolly confirms his absolutely insane request since they all desperately want sweet victory. Spitting, mad Samyong screams that this legendary tournament is packed with absolutely terrifying high-ranking martial arts monsters. He brutally roasts our guy, totally claiming a nobody like him has absolutely no right, crashing such an incredibly prestigious party. Oh, they want to play dirty. Our absolute menace, Bigong is completely prepared to drag them underground. With a mocking stare, he brutally asks Dong if his dusty old heart truly believes he is actually qualified. Clueless Dong dares to ask why Bigong unleashes absolute verbal destruction, ruthlessly roasting the guy as an entirely useless old fossil. Our hero hilariously tells the boomer to step aside for the incredibly awesome youth, which naturally makes Dong utterly explode. Seeing his buddy completely losing his absolute marbles, Samyong desperately begs the raging boomer to just chill out. The fragile ego of Dong shatters completely, but Samyong scolds him for taking the obvious bait. But our troll king absolutely refuses to stop, relentlessly spitting epic insults until the poor old instructor completely loses his sanity. Veins popping Dong violently screams at our guy, challenging him outside for a brutal fistfight to beat some actual respect into him. Our mastermind brilliantly calculates that utterly destroying this raging subordinate will leave the arrogant Samyong drowning in absolute embarrassment. Beating this boomer earns him the ultimate supervisory gig, perfectly timing with the tournament popping off at the legendary White Academy. That fancy school sits in Shanxi. Our scheming hero quickly calculates that the incredibly long journey will take a whole grueling month. And here is the genius part. One tiny detour perfectly leads them straight into the horrific demonic zone from that secret intel. Bigong secretly knew that going solo was the smartest move, but playing it safe was never his true goal. Beyond his wicked web of sinister schemes, his ultimate goal was ruthless. If Samyong dared to strike after Dong fell, Bigong would absolutely crush him into dust. Boom! A spine-chilling, monstrous aura suddenly crashed down on them. Samyong and Dong completely froze as the suffocating bloodlust finally hit them too. Bigong remained on high alert until the monster emerged from the shadows. It was the legendary Sword Demon. The terrifying demon strolled right up to Bigong with a wild grin. "You are a crazy bastard. I like you." Samyong and Dong nearly wet their pants, their souls, leaving their trembling bodies upon recognizing the monster. This absolute menace was Sang Pilgu. He was famous for many brutal things, but currently reigned as acting academy master. Quaking like a leaf from pure terror, Samyong stuttered out, a question asking why the master surfaced. Pilgu's eyes narrowed dangerously at the stupid question. He aggressively demanded to know if Sejong was implying that the academy master was banned from walking his own halls. Sejong instantly bowed nervously, laughing off his fatal slip of the tongue as a joke. Meanwhile, Bigong was sweating bullets. This grinning maniac was the absolute strongest monster he had encountered since his regression. Pilgu chuckled, claiming he only stepped outside for some fresh air, but his real goal was sniffing out the absolute spiciest rumors flying around the academy halls. It turns out he had totally eavesdropped on their tournament gossip. With a sinister smirk, he directly asked Bigong if his real goal was seizing control. Bigong boldly nodded yes. He brazenly added that he wanted full authority to handpick every representative cadet. The sword demon burst into absolute maniacal laughter at that. The sheer audacity to claim his rookie students were stronger than the academy's terrifying elite. But Bigong did not even blink, maintaining an absolutely fearless poker face about his insane proposal. Pilgu aggressively scoffed. He reminded Bigong he had only been at the academy for 2 measly months, yet he was already demanding supreme instructor authority. To settle this hilarious arrogance, Pilgu declared they would host a massive public martial arts deathmatch to decide the representatives. Pilgu smoothly dropped the bomb that Bigong's ragtag students would literally have to brawl the academy's chosen elite. The demon grinned like a total psychopath while Bigong was internally screaming in absolute panic. When the clueless class heard this nightmare, absolute chaos erupted. They frantically shrieked, totally blindsided by being dragged into this suicidal martial arts tournament. Worse still, they had to survive a brutal clash against the school's apex predators just to qualify for the main event. Bigong practically pulled his hair out in sheer frustration. His genius master plan had totally derailed. As the terrified kids continued to loudly whine about his lack of warning, Bigong brutally barked back, scolding them for crying when he was offering a divine favor. Mei fiercely slammed her hands down. She furiously demanded a proper explanation, sick and tired of his endless, reckless scheming without giving them a single warning. When Mei furiously demanded to know why they were dragged into this bloody mess, Bigong smugly boasted that this was his glorious method of expanding their tiny horizons. He then brazenly called the entire academy garbage, making Mei's jaw drop since he was their actual instructor. Amidst the crying, Yan stayed totally cool, calmly, asking the sweating instructor if the execution brackets were finalized yet. Sighing heavily in defeat, Bigong nodded. He pulled out the official doom schedule right there. He dramatically read the dreaded list aloud. The very first sacrificial lamb, Yomjarang. Poor Yom's soul practically left his screaming body, his jaw hitting the absolute floor in pure despair. His terrifying opponent, Sang Cho-jin, from the absolutely ferocious Tiger class, a fellow first-year monster who was guaranteed to make his life a total living hell. Yom gripped his hair in agonizing despair, instantly tipping Bigong off about their messy, deep-rooted history. Yom wailed loudly that they were old classmates. He confessed that, despite challenging Cho-jin multiple times in the past, he was always mercilessly stomped into the dirt. Bigong just smirked ruthlessly, mocking the poor kid for failing to grab even one pitiful victory in the past. Moving right along, Bigong cheerfully called out Joe Montauk, his devastating fate, facing off against Dan Hua from the legendary and terrifying Flying Dragon class. Montauk instantly burst into a pathetic fountain of tears, dramatically sobbing that his life was completely over. Bigong tilted his head in sheer confusion at this dramatic breakdown. He demanded to know who Dan Hua was, since the name rang massive bells. Montauk sobbed uncontrollably, revealing Dan Hua was the eldest daughter of the fearsome Malt clan, a major elite swordsman family easily capable of rivaling the great Yan bloodline. He cried that the fearsome girl had even scouted them out during the recent class transfers. Flash Bigong finally remembered. She was the arrogant high-class lady who straight up rejected joining his underdog class. Nong eagerly shot her hand into the air, happily claiming that Dan Hua was her bestie. She promised to use the power of friendship to resolve everything peacefully. Bigong brutally shot down her hopeful parade. Friendship was cute and all, but he straight up warned Nong that her actual opponent was someone entirely different. Poor Nong was actually matched with Hangi, a ruthless, battle-hardened second-year senior from the brutal Tiger class. Nong flashes a knowing smile. She recognizes Hangi instantly, Hez, the young master of a famous escort agency and completely tied to Dong's faction. Bigong instantly mentally labels the guy as absolute garbage. Moving down the list, Bigong announces Yan's challenger. It's a third-year elite from the legendary Flying Dragon class. Dead silence drops over the room. Bigong blinks in confusion, wondering why everyone suddenly froze in absolute terror. Dan calls out his master's ignorance. How could he not know Big Yum Hess, literally the undisputed king of the third-year students? Bigong shrugs it off. He knows the guy's reputation but fails to see why they are trembling like scared rabbits. The students desperately explain. Big Yum is the Lotus Sword Hall's vice master. And that hall? It was born directly from the Yan clan. They are destined bitter rivals. Bigong casually turns to Yan, asking if this so-called king outranks him in pure combat power. Yan bluntly admits he has absolutely no clue. Bigong skips right ahead to the final victim on the list. Our beloved underdog, Dan. Bigong drops a massive bomb. Dan's upcoming challenger is a former classmate, none other than that terrifying meat-brain titan known as Gok. Dan completely loses his absolute mind. His worst nightmare is his tournament opponent. Even worse, Gok personally begged for this exact deathmatch. Dan viciously facepalms in pure despair. He is utterly mathematically doomed. The duo dreads getting publicly slaughtered. But Bigong steps right up, radiating master energy. He vows he won't let his disciples lose face. However, greatness demands absolute suffering. He locks eyes with them. They have exactly 7 brutal days until the martial arts tournament kicks off, which translates to one thing: breaking past their absolute mortal limits. Yam casually brushes it off. Hez no battle-crazed maniac, so he honestly doesn't care. Instantly, Bigong crushes him with suffocating aura. Did he really think his pathetic opinion actually mattered here? Cut to pure hell. The disciples are thrown into merciless bone-breaking drills, especially those 2 complaining brats. Flashing a terrifyingly demonic smile, Bigong happily announces their doom. Their daily cultivation workload has officially been tripled for the week. Feeling left out of the suffering, Nong approaches the master. She politely asks if there is any quest she can help out with. Bigong casually assigns her to May's tutelage. Nong beams with pure joy, but May looks like she just swallowed a bitter bug. May boils with sheer rage. He acts like a complete tyrant. Meanwhile, the lone wolf, Yan, departs. He promises to polish his sword path alone. Bigong gives an approving nod, deeply trusting the prodigy's insane dedication. Desperate for a power-up, Dan eagerly begs the master for some secret world-shaking martial technique. Instead, Bigong brutally shuts him down. Just stick to basic breathing cultivation. Absolutely nothing else. Dan completely snaps in pure frustration. He begs his master to finally bless him with a new skill. Bigong sharply drops the cold, hard truth. For his current pathetic level, basic breathing is his only actual path to power. Seeing the sheer panic in Dan's eyes, Bigong easily connects the dots to Gok. He reassures the kid. Why stress when you already crushed Yan? Pivoting smoothly, Bigong dumps babysitting duty right onto May. He claims he needs to run a highly important sudden errand outside. He cheekily orders her to invent some hilariously dumb excuse if anyone comes looking for him. May is completely, absolutely dumbfounded. Did this sly fox only drag her into his inner circle just to use her as a glorious errand girl? Innocent little Nong skips over brightly, asking her new mentor about their upcoming grand training regime. Nong radiates pure sunshine while May boils with sheer murderous rage. Later under the moonlight, Dan circulates his chi. Suddenly, his master's confident words echo violently inside his anxious racing mind. The cold reality smacks him. His victory over Yan was a complete fluke. He only won because Bigong literally spoon-fed him the enemy's exact sword path. If they ever clashed again today, Yan would absolutely wipe the floor with him. His internal chi pool grew slightly, but the actual progress is moving as slowly as a crippled snail. And yet he must face that monstrous meathead in exactly 7 days. Worst of all, it will be a massively public execution. Pacing nervously, Dan wonders if surviving with one basic breathing skill is actually physically possible. Suddenly, heavy thuds echo through the dark hallway. Curious, he sneaks toward the martial arts hall to investigate the mystery. He peeks inside and freezes. Gok is intensely destroying training dummies. Pure icy terror violently shoots down Dan's spine. Sensing an aura, the musclehead sharply snaps his neck around. Dan quickly ducks behind the heavy wooden frame, praying to the heavens he went unnoticed. Sadly, the massive titan already locked onto his pathetic presence. Right as Dan exhales in relief, a massive shadow looms from behind. He screams in pure shock, hilariously tumbling straight backward onto his rear. Piercing him with a deadly glare, Gok instantly accuses him of being a filthy spy. Trembling Dan hilariously stammers out, questioning his rival's late-night hardcore gym obsession. Gok thinks the question is completely idiotic. He roars at Dan, asking if he seriously thinks he has no right to train. That booming voice alone sends shivers down Dan's spine. Trembling, he reminds the brute they never actually trained together in their old class. Furious that this weakling dared to talk back, Gok violently swings his massive fist, making Dan flinch in absolute terror. But Gok stops his punch at the very last second, vowing to completely obliterate him during their official tournament match instead. He orders the pathetic loser to get lost, promising a devastatingly humiliating public execution in exactly 1 week. Watching the giant walk away, Dan is completely mind-blown because the old Gok would have undoubtedly smashed him into oblivion. Dan exhales, but the crushing realization hits him hard. Am I actual trash for feeling relieved about surviving a bully? This brutal reality check ignites a spark. He absolutely refuses to remain a pathetic coward in this life. Elsewhere, Yom swings his blade like a total madman. Visualizing the arrogant Chojin, he pours his blazing soul into the strike. Blinking awake, he finds Muntuk looming over his pathetic form. Apparently, his heroic training ended in him completely blacking out. Yom curses his own weakness, groaning that 6 agonizing days of hellish torture still remain. Muntuk complains about Master Bigong, the crazy old man who dumped this hellish regimen on them before mysteriously vanishing into thin air. Speak of the devil, Bigong instantly materializes and smacks him hard with a wooden stick. Despite his demonic strictness, the master is actually impressed. These weaklings survived his insane daily quotas without dying. Bigong smirks, telling Yom he should face brutal punishment for losing to Chojin, but he will mercifully let it slide today. Ignoring the old man's trash talk, Yom demands to know where he vanished to after abandoning them all damn day. The master scoffs with supreme arrogance. He has his own legendary business and will not babysit them around the clock. However, the master declares it is finally time. Their brutal one-on-one combat lessons for the Grand Martial Arts Tournament start now. Yom practically loses his absolute sanity. How could there possibly be even more torture on the schedule? He screams that they already bled past midnight doing his ridiculous demon drills. Now he wants to suffocate them with more. Bigong flashes a devilish grin. Basic foundations are utterly useless against their monstrous opponents, so the real nightmare begins now. But Yom stubbornly believes it is absolutely impossible for total underdogs to miraculously master a legendary winning technique in just 7 measly days. He yells that they are utterly average barebones. Hard work cannot magically defeat natural-born geniuses like the arrogant Chojin and Danhwa. With desperate sincerity, Yom asks the master if enduring this hellish routine even gives them a single sliver of hope. Bigong drops the painful truth bomb. No matter what miracles they attempt in 1 week, their victory odds remain rock bottom. Yom throws up his hands in a massive "I told you so" moment. Meanwhile, Muntuk questions why they are even suffering if defeat is destiny. Bigong smirks, clarifying that surviving his hellish procedures guarantees one thing: they at least won't lose in an incredibly pathetic, humiliating fashion. Muntuk jumps up, claiming the old man is just bluffing his way out, and his big words mean absolutely nothing. He turns his back, quitting the stupid tournament entirely. Smiling like a relieved idiot, he invites Bigong to expel him or beat him senseless. Absolutely nothing will drag him back to that hell. Bigong's murderous alter ego nearly bursts out to grant that death wish, but the master violently seals his bloodlust away. Yom completely surprisingly stays behind. He seriously asks if avoiding a hilariously humiliating defeat is actually within their mortal grasp. Bigong's eyes widen in sheer shock. He fully expected this pathetic complainer to run away crying too. Yom clenches his fists. His path is pure suffering, but unlike Muntuk, his burning grudge fuels him. He desperately craves sweet revenge against that arrogant Chojin. Blazing determination explodes in Yom's eyes, and the old master absolutely loves it. Bigong cackles, declaring that his fiery attitude and legendary words just earned him absolute full marks in his masterclass. Meanwhile, Dan grinds away in total isolation. Suddenly, the arrogant Big Yom approaches, questioning his sudden fiery passion for the upcoming tournament. Dan jumps in pure shock at his rival's presence. He stammers, asking if he seriously marched over here just to mock his tournament entry. Dan awkwardly tries to be polite, but Big Yom instantly cuts him off. They both know their fierce mutual hatred needs no fake greetings. Big Yom aggressively demands why he is suddenly entering the Grand Martial Tournament. Sweating intensely, Dan explains the arrogant jerk is totally mistaken. This suicidal entry was entirely forced upon him by his crazy masters. Big Yom bursts into a mocking villain laugh. He fiercely roars at Dan to stop spitting pathetic excuses and spit out the real truth. He viciously accuses Dan of being an incredibly bitter, jealous loser, only joining the tournament to selfishly steal his legendary spotlight back. Yan sighs deeply. Big Yong is jumping to ridiculous conclusions again, just like always. Brushing past him, Yan calmly states he couldn't care less about fixing Big Yong's delusions. He definitely isn't playing babysitter today. Trembling with sheer fury, Big Yong snaps. He slams his blade against Yan's throat. He barks that Yan shouldn't get cocky. He only tolerated this disrespect because of the main family's backing, absolutely not out of weakness. But now, that flimsy leash is broken. Yan finally crossed the ultimate line. He completely guarantees absolute zero mercy once they clash in the upcoming martial arts tournament. Yan finally breaks his silence. He coldly questions Big Yong's actual motives for blindly swinging a sword around the academy. Screeching like a startled goat, Big Yong declares his grand destiny is exposing hidden truths to the completely clueless masses. His supposed ultimate truth, proving his family's blade completely outclasses Yan's lineage. Hearing this utter nonsense, Yan simply exhales, sarcastically agreeing with him. His goat-like screaming violently stops. Completely dumbfounded, Big Yong stammers, demanding an explanation. Completely ignoring his confusion, Yan drops a heavy truth bomb. Never draw a blade, you lack the absolute guts to use. That hesitation only disgraces his family's honor. Bigong practically foams at the mouth, but Yan completely tunes him out. Yan casually promises a brutal reunion at the tournament. Throwing a massive tantrum, Big Yong violently smashes the ground to look intimidating. Meanwhile, Dan is sweating bullets. He desperately replays Gaul's horrifying promise to completely obliterate him in the upcoming arena. Judging by that monstrous aura and death threat, Dan knows Gaul is absolutely dead serious about this deadly tournament. Mid-panic attack, Dan suddenly spots Yom grinding through an agonizingly brutal yet incredible martial art. Dan's jaw drops. Yom's aura is completely transformed. Before Dan can interrupt, Munta casually hooks his collar. He strictly warns him against breaking Yom's intense focus. Dan demands to know why Munta is just spectating. Munta yawns proudly, declaring he is taking a strategic break from his own hellish workout. Baffled by this pure laziness, Dan frantically reminds him that Master Bigong will completely skin him alive if caught. Waving it off, Munta chuckles. The crazy instructor pulled an all-nighter force-feeding Yom some absolutely bizarre cultivation art. Then the master literally vanished like a ghost. Naturally, Dan assumes both buddies scored this epic secret technique. Munta instantly denies it. He totally ditched the legendary lesson because catching up on beauty sleep was a higher priority. Dan internally explodes with pure jealousy. He practically begged Bigong for another round of overpowered special training, but his only reward, a boring mandate to keep sniffing air with his basic breathing exercises. It feels like absolute betrayal. Bigong played favorites, totally abandoning him while grinding all night with Yom. Is he seriously supposed to just breathe in circles for 6 days, then face that terrifying monster Gaul? Dan furiously concludes that Bigong's so-called master plan for him is absolute garbage. Elsewhere, Nyong dramatically collapses after training, deeply thanking instructor Mei for her heavenly guidance. Flashing a warm smile, Mei praises her intense dedication and forcefully commands her to get some well-deserved rest. Honestly, Mei is utterly annoyed. Where did that irresponsible Bigong vanish to leaving her to solo carry the teaching duties? Still, she smiles brightly. Playing the reliable instructor completely beats returning to her extremely boring past life. Going on patrol, she suddenly spots Dan fiercely hacking away at a training dummy like a complete maniac. Mei absolutely panics. What is he doing? He is strictly forbidden from doing anything besides peaceful energy circulation before his death match. Sweating heavily, Dan completely lies. He claims Bigong secretly ordered him to start intense sword practice. Mei's eyes widen in disbelief. Buying the stupid excuse anyway, she gently scolds him to avoid breaking his body. Leaving Dan to his ridiculous antics, the scene shifts. Deep in the silent woods, Yan faces a colossal tree. With a godlike flash, Yan perfectly slices the massive trunk. His posture remains so calm he barely looks alive. But wait, his eyes snap open. That completely legendary strike was entirely in his head. Pure image training. Suddenly, Bigong appears like a phantom. He smirks, asking for progress updates, but Yan coldly admits total failure. Yan humbly acknowledges his completely lacking skills. Nodding sagely, Bigong brutally agrees without any hesitation. Even so, Yan's eyes gleam dangerously. There is zero chance he loses to some random academy extra right now. Chuckling at the sheer arrogance, Bigong calls him a cocky punk. He can't wait to see which monster survives this hellish week. Meanwhile, as Munta peacefully snores, Yom is sweating blood. He is completely maximizing Bigong's secret absolute technique. Flashback to last night, Bigong demanded Yom's tragic backstory, finding his revenge-driven tournament match perfectly dramatic. So Yom completely spilled his dark history. Originally, they had zero beef. That guy was the golden child of the martial world's elite. Meanwhile, Yom hailed from a dirt-poor, no-name faction. Their paths were never meant to cross. But somehow, that arrogant young master dug up his family's buried secrets. He viciously mocked Yom, demanding how demonic faction trash dared enter the Sacred Spring Academy. Instantly, nasty rumors spread like wildfire. The whole courtyard treated him like an underworld villain. Furious Yom charged straight at him, snapping that his privileged rival had the facts completely wrong. Sure, his dad walked the dark path once, but he washed his hands of blood ages ago. The Righteous Alliance gave him a clean slate. All this ancient history happened before Yom's birth. That elite jerk didn't care. He actually slapped Yom's face just for daring to speak up. He called his father a filthy traitor who shamelessly crawled to the light to breed pathetic offspring. He called Yom a walking sickness. That absolute disrespect ignited a blazing fury. Roaring Yom unleashed his wooden blade, but the genius easily crushed him. After that humiliating first defeat, he relentlessly challenged the young master, but despite grinding his bones to dust, he never scratched him. Then, by some twisted fate, his squad was thrown into the special purpose class. That was his tragic backstory, but Master Bigong yawned, dismissing it since no real assassins were involved. Yom was absolutely flabbergasted by this nonsense. But, bam! A swift smack right to his skull. Bigong laughed. He called the entire revenge plot pathetic child's play. He ordered Yam back to boring basic training, but the furious disciple screamed back. It might sound completely trivial to a master, but he would never ever forgive that arrogant bastard. That elite trash spat on his family's honor. There was no universe where he'd let that slide. His father bled to escape the dark path, eyes blazing. Yam swore to the heavens he'd crush Chojin. This raw killing intent hooked the master. Wearing a demonic grin, he asked if Yom would risk everything. He totally praised the kid's fiery fighting spirit, even if the backstory itself was terribly boring. Bigong smirked. He respected that Yom chose blazing rage over pathetic self-pity like Dan. Yom stood completely stunned. Finally, the eccentric master decided to actually train him. Ominous dark mana flared in Bigong's palm, a secret weapon he always intended to pass down. He prepared to ram this forbidden energy straight into his core, sweating bullets. Yom asked what it was. The master just chuckled, saying his peanut brain couldn't possibly comprehend the complex martial truth, but he gave a chilling warning. This was no ordinary righteous sect internal energy. This power was a wild beast. It would viciously rebel inside his veins. Yam had to ruthlessly suppress it. If he could actually tame this demonic force, his power levels would absolutely skyrocket beyond imagination. Yam caught that terrifying if part gulped and asked the golden question, what happens if he fails? Bigong paused dramatically, then cheerfully admitted his head would probably swell up like a balloon and explode. Yam practically had a heart attack, but the crazy master just waved it off as a hilarious prank. He reassured his panicking disciple that he wouldn't recklessly shove literal bombs into his energy center. Yam finally sighed in relief. But then the master casually added that failure meant unimaginable, bone-crushing agony, a soul-shattering torture so severe he would literally be begging the heavens for the sweet release of death. With those terrifying terms, did he still want the power? Trembling down to his marrow, Yam accepted. For 18 agonizing hours a day, he wrestled with the dark mana. 5 brutal days passed in a blur. At first, absolute agony consumed him. It felt like wild beasts were mercilessly ripping his chest open. But through sheer willpower, he flawlessly cycled his cultivation technique until the raging energy submitted. Suddenly, the torment completely vanished, leaving him blinking in utter confusion. Did he actually conquer the impossible trial? But he didn't feel like an awakened god yet. Worse, his eccentric master had completely ghosted everyone for days. Paranoia struck hard. Was his crazy master actually a gigantic scam artist who just fed him poison? Hidden away, Bigong was actually enduring his own hellish martial training. Brushing off the dust, our guy smirked. The ultimate underdog preparation, 100% complete. Dawn broke on the Heavenly Martial Tournament qualifiers. The entire academy was absolutely buzzing with pure hype. A massive public showdown like this, totally unprecedented. The student body was losing their collective minds. Plus, let us be real here. It was a glorious excuse to skip a grueling day of training. The general consensus, Bigong's ragtag squad of misfits, stood absolutely zero chance against the academy's elite prodigies, though a few optimistic souls whispered about a miracle upset. After all, Dan had already completely wrecked Yan, and thanks to that epic beatdown, the former top student was rotting away in the infamous special class. Still, the elites were leagues above Yan. The crowd figured Bigong's crew was just walking right into a public slaughter, with absolute monsters like Manhwa and Gok on the elite squad. It was practically a walking cheat code. The brutal reality of this world. Pure, unadulterated talent always crushes the pathetic dreams of ordinary hard workers. Instructor Dong was practically drooling with confidence. His hand-picked roster was the absolute cream of the crop. Sure, missing Yan was a tiny bummer, but Dong knew his remaining elites would effortlessly wipe the floor with those rejects. His master plan served Bigong a piping hot plate of public humiliation and crush his annoying little spirit forever. Enter Bigong strolling in like he owned the place, teasing Dong for looking like a guy who had already won the lottery. A vein practically popped on Dong's forehead. He growled about hearing how Bigong tortured his hopeless students with hellish training. Bigong just flashed an incredibly cheeky grin. Hey, my kids are basically trash right now. They desperately need the extra elbow grease. Dong scoffed, sneering down his nose. They are not trash, Bigong. They are just incredibly painfully pitiful. Bigong tilted his head in mock confusion. Pitiful Dong snapped that Bigong was dragging them through totally pointless, agonizing suffering. And the ultimate punchline, both the master and his students were about to get publicly humiliated in front of the whole school. Unfazed Bigong just chuckled. Man, somebody is still incredibly salty about getting completely outsmarted the last time we met. Right in the middle of the trash talk, Bigong's eyes locked onto a shiny new toy strapped to Dong's waist. Dong practically puffed out his chest like a proud peacock. Ah, this little beauty. It is a completely custom mastercraft weapon. He bragged about wielding it today. And surprisingly enough, Bigong actually looked like he was genuinely drooling over the shiny blade. Caressing the hilt like a total weirdo, Dong smugly announced its epic name. The legendary Violet Dawn Sword. Crafted by the absolute best blacksmith in the province, and it cost him a mind-blowing 200 silver coins. The stats on this thing, insane. It could literally slice clean through solid boulders without sustaining a single scratch. Plus, it was blindingly gorgeous. Dong declared it the ultimate pinnacle of weapon craftsmanship, a true, undeniable work of art. Activating his all-seeing eyes, Bigong gave it a serious magical scan. And honestly, the specs were not half bad at all. But wait a second. The wicked design was giving him massive déjà vu from his bloody days as a demon army commander. It looked suspiciously identical. Could it actually be his old weapon? No way the universe could not be that ridiculously funny. Regardless of its dark history, free loot is free loot. And our guy was fully ready to snatch it up. A devilish smirk crept across Bigong's face. Hey Dong, how about we place a spicy little wager on today's results? Dong flinched like he had been slapped. A bet Bigong casually pointed out they both clearly expected their own kids to win. Plus, let us not pretend they did not have massive unresolved beef just waiting to be grilled. The stakes were incredibly simple but brutal. Whoever lost the tournament had to grant the winner one absolute unconditional request. No backing out, no cowardly excuses. Dong's jaw practically hit the floor at the sheer audacity of this broke instructor. Are you crazy? Dong sputtered. I literally rigged the matchups myself. Bigong just winked. Oh, I am fully aware, buddy. But he casually reminded the arrogant instructor about giving the students a quote-unquote proper and fair selection process. After grinding his teeth for a second, Dong swallowed the bait and aggressively accepted the wager. Bigong's sinister smile widened dramatically. Hook, line, and sinker. The fact that Dong agreed so fast meant the pompous guy definitely wanted something huge from him. Dong scoffed with pure villainous arrogance. I will not tell you my prize yet. That would completely ruin the delightful suspense of crushing you. Meanwhile, Dong's inner monologue was screaming in triumph. He completely figured out that Bigong was just drooling over his expensive new sword. But Dong's master plan was way more sinister. The exact second his team won, he was forcing Bigong to officially resign forever, without Bigong around. That highly annoying special class would be totally dissolved, and his precious prodigy, Yan, would come crawling back. It was the ultimate scheme to completely destroy Bigong's ego. Bigong sealed the deal. No takebacks, got it. Suddenly, Principal Sang stepped onto the grand stage, silencing the loud arena. The microphone echoed as Sang announced the crazy new rules. Usually, instructors just handpicked their favorite pets. But Bigong had aggressively challenged the entire system, and honestly, the principal found it so incredibly entertaining, he greenlit the whole chaotic showdown. So the rules changed. The original candidates must clash with the bold challengers, and only the victors advance. Basically, we get 5 epic one-on-one duels. You win by making them cry uncle or knocking them out cold. Bigong drops a massive warning, try to kill your opponent, and you get instantly disqualified. Rules established. The grand tournament begins. Kicking things off, it is our underdog Yom versus the arrogant Chojin. Munta immediately notices Yom sweating bullets on stage. Meanwhile, Chojin instantly mocks him, laughing about Yom's desperate daily training. Chojin cackles, completely baffled that Yom trained so hard just to get flattened again. Sneering like a classic villain, Chojin calls him a clueless bug. He sarcastically asks if Yom even remembers his massive losing streak. Yom remains totally deadpan. He bluntly replies that Chojin has crushed him exactly 8 times. The second those words drop, Yom explodes forward with pure rage. He leaps high, aiming a devastating aerial strike. But nope, Chojin casually smacks him right in the face with a brutal horizontal strike, calling him utter trash. Munta literally facepalms in pure frustration. He groans that Yom's intense training montage was completely useless. Outside the ring, Bigong catches Dong grinning from ear to ear, practically overflowing with smug confidence. Dong finds it hilariously pathetic that Bigong actually bet on Yom to beat a genius like Chojin. Dong knows the script. He has watched these two clash before, and the ending is always exactly the same. Every single time they fought, Yom got absolutely, utterly obliterated, without fail. Plus, Dong is completely stress-free. He totally rigged the tournament brackets to guarantee this exact one-sided massacre. Dong smugly calls himself a master strategist, dismissing Bigong as a naive rookie who needs a reality check. He is eagerly counting the seconds until he wins their wager, ready to watch Bigong suffer a wonderfully humiliating defeat. Dong cannot wait for the tears, but instead of panicking, Bigong suddenly flashes a knowing, creepy smile. Dong turns back around and his jaw drops. Yom just nailed Chojin with a strike so heavy it almost folded him in half. Maintaining his icy poker face, Bigong coldly informs Dong that the match is already decided. His defeat is absolute. Meanwhile, Chojin is paralyzed with pure shock. Did that worthless trash actually just hit him? Yam just grins back. This absolutely triggers Chojin, who loses his mind and wildly swings his blade to crush him. Furious that a lowly peasant dared to laugh at him, Chojin launches a completely unhinged and brutal counterattack. Munta jumps up hyped that Yom actually landed a solid punch, but his hype dies instantly as Yom gets beaten like a cheap drum. Munta assumes Chojin simply let his guard down. Yan totally agrees, guessing the young master just slipped up in his arrogance. Wait, scratch that. Yan realizes Chojin was always this arrogant, yet Yom still never managed to scratch him before. Yan points out that a proud golden boy like Chojin would never ever let a garbage-tier fighter touch him even accidentally. The truth hits Munta like a truck. Yom actually leveled up. He is no longer the pathetic punching bag they knew. For context, the Heavenly Tiger Martial Academy is incredibly legendary. A terrifyingly prestigious school in Hunan, with over 100 elite disciples, and the absolute big boss of this powerhouse academy, Chojin's own father. As the sole heir, Chojin is the region's ultimate prodigy. He is the only monster who has mastered every single secret technique the academy possesses. To make it completely unfair, he has been chugging ultra-rare elixirs and sacred tonics like water since childhood. He is literally built different, a supreme genius among geniuses. Still foaming at the mouth over that one hit, Chojin unleashes his devastating first form, the Heavenly Radiance Flurry. Yom miraculously stands his ground, but Chojin instantly combos into the blindingly fast, Heavenly Cloud Mobility art. Executing the 18 rampant steps, he teleports behind Yom instantly. He triggers his deadly sixth form, aiming for a brutal instant kill, but Yom just wildly tanks the heavy damage. His body is screaming in agony, yet he refuses to fall. Chojin is having a total mental breakdown. How did he embarrass himself in an official match against such literal trash? To salvage his shattered ego, Chojin decides to flatten Yom into a pancake. He refuses to give him a single second to breathe. Chojin turns the dial to maximum overdrive, unleashing the catastrophic ninth form. The explosive impact launches Yom into orbit. Yom craters violently into the arena floor. Chojin smirks victoriously, totally convinced the garbage has finally been disposed of. Suddenly, a dusty voice echoes out. Yom casually asks if he has finished, claiming it tickled. With a terrifying grin, Yom declares he is just getting started. Chojin's brain completely short-circuits as Yom casually stands back up perfectly fine after eating a finishing move. Chojin unleashed his ultimate attack, yet Yom casually tanked the entire thing. While Chojin mentally buffers, Yom instantly blitzes forward like a heat-seeking missile. Oddly, Chojin senses zero bloodlust. He smirks, readying a devastating counterattack. Bam, a direct hit launches Yom backward. But 10 seconds later, the madman charges again. Yom swings wild. Chojin barely dodges, sweating as the impact completely shatters the arena. Wait, Yom's sword path totally changed. The horrifying truth finally hits Chojin's brain. This psycho gets stronger with every beating. Yom keeps rushing in like an immortal zombie. Suddenly, an overwhelming demonic aura seems to swallow Yom's terrifying silhouette entirely. Chojin starts totally losing it. Just what kind of hellish training did he do? The crowd's jaws completely drop. Is the almighty Chojin actually getting pushed back? Dong absolutely loses his mind, screaming for Chojin to wake up and focus. Meanwhile, Bang smirks like a villain. He knows Yom perfectly adapted to the deadly rhythm. Even Bigong nods in silent approval. This crazy kid is exceeding his wildest tactical expectations. Back when Bigong ruled as Legion Commander, he discovered the ultimate cheat code regression. He formulated countless master plans to completely obliterate the demonic threat upon his return. For 65 grueling years, he relentlessly researched the absolute most brutal ways to slaughter demons. Thousands of tactics were born. Sadly, harsh reality forced him to scrap the craziest ones. One banned method, forcibly injecting pure explosive mana directly into a martial artist's body. Then they torture their physical limits to adapt. A terrifyingly simplified clone of his own experiments. Sure, this mana is heavily diluted, but it is still chaotic energy from another dimension. Deadly side effects remain. Even the legendary Bigong writhed in pure agony for days, yet this absolute madman somehow gritted his teeth and survived the exact same monstrous ordeal. He perfectly fused that alien power into his core, and the monstrous results are showing. God-tier reflexes, supercharged blood flow. His reinforced core grants him practically infinite stamina. Back in the arena, Chojin is panting heavily, feeling completely frustrated. How is this cockroach still swinging? Completely enraged, Chojin unleashes his devastating seventh sword form. He stakes everything on this legendary technique, praying it finally crushes this zombie's spirit. The massive strike lands, but wait. A sinister smile flashes. Yom's grip locks his arm. Chojin's brute force never failed before. But right now, he is starring in a nightmare. Trapped with zero escape routes, Chojin eats a catastrophic hook that sends him flying. Crash Chojin practically eats dirt, struggling to twitch, while Yam strolls over, dripping with mockery. Spitting blood, Chojin curses him out. A coward. In a real death match, Yam dies. Yam cheerfully nods. But hey, breaking news, buddy, this is just a friendly sparring match. Logic completely fails here. Chojin's soul leaves his body as Yam raises his heavy blade. Chojin almost passes out from pure dread. The audience shrieks in total horror. Klang Sang steps in at the last microsecond, casually blocking the death blow. Match over. It is official. Yam takes the unbelievable win. Dong violently pulls his hair in denial, but Bang just flashes a villainous smirk, perfectly understanding the grand scheme. That wraps today. Craving more chaotic action?